Welcome to the Echo Oscar Delta podcast, where we talk to Navy EOD techs and hear the stories that they want to share. All ideas, thoughts, and statements are those of the guest and the host of Echo Oscar Delta, and not of Navy EOD or Navy as a whole. All right. Today we have Jay Lee. He separated as a chief in Navy EOD, did 13 years, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Went to Afghanistan 3 times, did East Africa, and then went to Bahrain.
Oh, yeah. The Kingdom of Bahrain, if you will.
Got that, what do they call it, money deployment?
Yeah, Operation Enduring Per Diem. It's fantastic.
It's so good. That's awesome. So, always start off with it. It's the tried and true first question. How'd you find EOD?
Teron, EOD found me.
Ooh, I love it.
I know that sounds weird, but that is actually true.
Yeah.
I had no idea EOD even existed, and I joined the Navy with a SEAL contract because I was like, well, I want to go. I want to do something, cool / I want to better my chances to contribute to the war effort. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In my opinion. And that was to get over to Afghanistan, get over to Iraq, and do my part, right? Before. That was my 17-year-old version of patriotism right there. So I had a SEAL contract, and I joined the Navy, and my boot camp division just so happened to be sponsored by EOD Mobile Unit 3. Like we had special little ball caps. We had Mobile Unit 3 t-shirts. We felt like we were hot shit. No one knew what EOD even was, but we're like, they sponsored our boot camp division, so we're badass. And
that's awesome. I had no idea that happened.
I mean, I definitely didn't know. And they came out and kind of hung out with us and taught us more about EOD, what it was. It was a rate at that point. I feel like it just became, this was in 2008.
Yeah.
July of 2008. So, yeah, it was fresh still as a rate. And I was like, damn, that sounds badass. I can do the things essentially that I wanted to do going in that I read about. And I was like, okay, that's all what really interests me. But I won't just solely be a team guy. I won't just work with SEALs. And that's what really sold it for me is like, who was it? It was Ted Sykes.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's still in or not. I don't know if we can say his name. So, yeah.
Just did.
Shit. But it was like, you have the potential to work with every SOF unit that there is. And I was like, that's really cool because, I mean, yeah, SEALs are SEALs and it's cool. And it was 17-year-old me, or 18 at that point. And they had the allure and everything like that, and no one really knows. And it's what I always tell people is EOD is the Navy's best kept secret. Yeah. Because if these teenagers, right, think SEALs are badass, if they just knew what EOD was, I mean, come on.
Right.
We're just bad at marketing ourselves.
True.
But yeah, so that was that, and I learned about it. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to do that because I can do that mission plus some stuff and work with all other SOF units and not just be tied to one. And it was actually a really funny sequence of events because literally no one does this in boot camp. No one goes from having a SEAL contract to essentially DORing, right? You have to fill out the paperwork to then sign a new contract. But I talked with the EOD dive motivator at boot camp first. I'm like, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I would like to do. Is it possible? He's like, hell yeah, it's possible. Are you serious? I was like, yeah. I mean, I have this. It's not like I think I'm gonna fail or anything, but I just really am interested in EOD now. Like I just didn't even know it was a thing, and I don't want to miss the opportunity if it's possible. Yeah. And he's like, hell yeah, I will help you, no matter what. And he brought he went out. He left, and this was in their office. He leaves. He goes talk to the SO, the SEAL dive motivator. 5 minutes later, that dude bursts in the office. He's like, Lee, what the fuck? I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I was deer in the headlights. I was like, what do I do in my hand? How do I respond to that? You know, little recruit Lee. And it was an interesting phenomenon because he's like, this never, like, what are you doing? He was like, I was like, I just don't want to do this. You know, I would like to be EOD instead. And he's like, you think you can just come in here and fucking pick and choose what you want to do and blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah,
Kind of.
like, I mean, I'm not there yet. And it was, you know, always ingrained in our heads. Like the moment you think you're not going to make it in something, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
Right. And especially if you want to go do something else,
Yeah.
that's always going to be there. So I was like, at the end of the day, I'm saving you a lot of time and everyone else that is, you know, going to be in the pipeline because I'm not going to want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to do this. And this is now a burning desire that I have. And he's like, okay, you know, I'll deal with it. I can respect that. And made me do a bunch of push-ups and then turned me over to the EOD dive motivator. And the rest is history.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That I can only imagine. Like,
Oh, man.
yeah, I can only imagine. That's great, dude.
It was awkward. It was painful, but it was good. It was something that happened early on in my career that really hammered the point of if you feel something in your gut, right? That was my real, as an adult, right? Quote unquote adult. I was still 18, granted.
Yeah.
That is legally an adult. Looking back, I was like, I was a fucking kid.
Yeah.
But that was like, trust your gut.
Yeah.
Right? You have to trust your gut because if I didn't do that, I probably wouldn't have made it through Buds because I had that in the back of my mind. It was planted in my mind very deeply that I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was a great lesson for me and my only saving grace as an 18-year-old of being mature.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
For the rest of your time in boot camp doing dive motivator stuff, did you receive special interest?
Yeah, special interest to say the least. That was, oh man, I remember the SWIC guy, right? The SWIC dive motivator. He was crazy. Okay, this dude, instructor Baron. I will never forget this guy. I wasn't even going SWIC, but he had this 12-sided die, right? He just carried it with him all the time, and he would tell you to drop. Roll the die, and you had to do 10 times the amount of push-ups shown on the die.
Jeez.
Like, I don't even... And so, for some reason, whenever we walked on the pool deck, Lee, drop down. And it's like, boom, roll the die every single time. So, I mean, I guess that helped me out, but
Yeah.
it was a thing.
That's funny.
I got a lot of attention.
Nice. Yeah, that's an awesome way to start, though. Like, I like it. If you have something in your mind that you want to pursue, just friggin' pursue it. That's legit. So getting through boot camp, going through EOD school, anything crazy in EOD school that you got into that I'll clarify you are willing to share.
Yeah, I don't want to incriminate anyone.
Exactly.
I don't know if I want to tell any matador stories.
Yeah. Yeah, the bulls. That's what he's talking about. Bulls.
Yeah, bulls. Running of the bulls, if you will. That's a tradition. No, I mean, like everyone else, it was probably a shock about just exactly how much information and how technically based the school is. That was a huge learning curve, especially, you know, granted, I mean, I just really didn't apply myself in high school a lot. I always felt, and my mentors told me that I possessed a good amount of intellect, but I just didn't care, you know? And yeah, that might be an excuse, but that's just how I was. And it was, you know, definitely a mature way of going about high school, but I had already made the decision that I was going to enlist when I was 17. And I did through the delayed entry program. So I was like, cool, I'm not going to take the SATs. I'm not going to do this. I had senioritis essentially right then and there but that really screwed myself over, you know, just in the meantime, or for that time being, because I just wasn't applying myself as much as I could have. And then I got to EOD school And it was like, I really want to do this. So that application, like I was able to really hone in. It was a lot, but just like anything else, like you're never going to be good at doing X if you just start out. So
Right.
I just was really trying to do as many problems as possible to get better at it, you know? And man, I friggin' double tapped my ADOPS test.
Yeah.
Yeah. Idiot. Because yeah, it was just like I was not very well versed on computers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, early on in my life, didn't really have a lot. And I think we had one computer in our house, and it was like the family computer. And it's like, I didn't know what I was doing on that thing. I like checked my email, and what email was I going to check?
Yeah.
And school was largely not based online back then.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a big learning curve for me. And yeah, I just felt like no one double taps ADOPS. And I'm just sitting there like, God damn, this sucks. But thankfully I was able to get back in and proceed on. But yeah, I did get in a motorcycle accident in EOD school, which sucked. Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah, it was during TMD's, Tools and Methods Division,
Yeah.
right? And it was a Friday. We were going to go to a movie, right, at the Destin Commons, right? The old Stomping Grounds down, EOD school's down in Destin. And I rode my bike, right? And we're going over the Mid-Bay Bridge. My buddies are behind me in their car. And this dude was going, like, get up to the gate, go through the toll. This dude was going so slow. He's probably going 30 miles an hour, okay? And yeah, I was a young kid, 19 years old at the time now, with this motorcycle. So, I mean, obviously recipe for disaster. And this moment kind of framed a lot of the other stuff that I like to talk about in my financial life.
Yeah.
But I obviously wanted to go fast on my bike, and the bridge is like, yeah, you can haul ass. This guy's going super slow. He actually acknowledged that he was going slow, pulled over to the shoulder, still driving, and waved me on. Now, there are signs on the Mid-Bay Bridge saying, do not pass. Obviously, that didn't apply to me.
Yeah.
So I blow around this guy, all the while hitting these lane reflectors, but they look like turtle shells,
yeah.
right? You know, the giant mega ones, not just like little reflectors. So my front tire glances these things. I get a ridiculous front tire wobble, and my handlebars lock to one side, and I get shot off the front of this thing.
Dude.
Yeah. My bike, I believe, went about 200 yards without me.
Jeez.
I was at least 50 yards from where I remember launching off, because, I mean, it locked, essentially catapulted me out, and I just like kind of blacked out and then came to on the pavement. And yeah, that sucked.
Dude.
That sucked. And my teammates, though, my classmates, they're the ones that were behind me. They're like, holy shit. They thought I was dead.
Yeah.
Like they 100% thought I was dead. They watched the whole thing happen. And I came to, I'm like, what's going on? Where's all my stuff? I had to wear in a backpack. It was gone. I'm running around, like, I pick my bike up and move it to the side of the road, because I was just like, oh man, I got to get my shit out of the way. Like, I'm going to block traffic. I'm going to be that guy that is now blocking traffic. So that's all I'm concerned about. The dude that I passed, him and his girlfriend, like, they went around me to stop traffic, oncoming traffic. Like, his girlfriend popped out. Obviously, people were stopping behind us, but he was like, holy shit, I don't want anyone to run this guy over.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was awesome on their part. I wish I could remember their names. But they stopped traffic. He runs over to me. He's like, dude, you just need to, like, sit down or something. I'm like, no, man, I got to find my backpack. I just got to move my bike over here. He's like, dude, you're not even, where's your shoe at? And I look down at my feet. I only have one shoe on. I was like, I don't know. And so, yeah, I just kind of sat over, and my roommate, who was in EOD school with me, obviously he didn't make it, though. Unfortunately, he was a really great guy, great roommate, because he essentially took care of me the rest of my time, like when I was all jacked up. Because, dude, I mean, I had road rash all over my arms, my shoulder, my back, my knees. I didn't go to the hospital. But, yeah, my roommate came over, and, man, that bond of brotherhood, I feel like, was really cemented for me right there.
Yeah.
Because he didn't come over and like, dude, what the fuck? Like, he just came over and just like kind of wrapped his arms around me.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, and I lost it, man. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like it was kind of hitting me at that point that I could have died.
Yeah.
And like everything just would have been done, like in a blink. And so that was awesome that he was there to do that. And like, I was able to experience that. And then, yeah, another buddy of mine who was in my class, I essentially went to our LPO's house. I waived medical because I had a test on Monday.
Yeah.
I had my tape and line test on Monday, dude, the
do it.
practical. I was like, I'm not going to the hospital. I'm just going to be fine. I'm going to do this. And so we went to my LPO's house, and they're just like feeding me shots of tequila. He's like, okay, just drink this. I was like, okay.
This medicine.
They're like, get in the bathtub, drink this. My other buddy's like picking shells out of my elbow because like the highway just randomly is strewn about with shells or whatever. And yeah, that was how we handled that.
Yeah.
And we cleared the Walmart out of all their steri strips and stuff like that. So they patched me up, and I go in on Monday, and I'm just like, we're in utilities. We're still wearing utilities. So I was short sleeve. And
dude, just rubbing.
yeah, I'm just like, arms are essentially ace bandaged out to my sides like this. I can't really put them down because my shoulders were so badly road rash. I probably did break stuff, but I just didn't go to the hospital to check it out, which is really stupid for the record. And I'm like, all right, I'm ready to take my test. And our instructor's walking, like, what the fuck happened to you? And it was another stupid thing that I did. Didn't tell anyone except my LPO. So that's my only saving grace. Like, he knew, I told him, but like, we didn't tell really anyone at school. And so we kind of got hammered for that. But they're like, thankfully he's alive because you guys are stupid.
Yeah.
For you doing what you did, and then everyone trying to just cover this up. So we learned our lesson that way. But then I was like, yeah, I'm ready to take my test. They're like, no, you need to go to medical right now. Like, there's no way you're taking your tape and line test. It's not the most physical test at school, but it is, there's a lot of arm movement and stuff like that. And you got to get down, and I'm not going to talk about tactics on the net here, but I don't want any terrorist organizations learning our tape and method techniques. But they're like, one of the instructors walks in, and he's like, I'll let you take this test if you can raise your hands above your head. I was like, sweet, done. I was like trying to do it, and they just like
shoulder high only.
wouldn't. Yeah, if that, I'm like, I'll go to medical. They're like, yeah, see you later. So then I was on med hold for a month. That sucked. But yeah,
dude,
real
that's
stupid.
That's intense. That's an intense way to start.
Yeah, all self-imposed, totally avoidable for the record.
Yeah,
and yeah, it was. Yeah, that med hold, that I feel like that was the hardest part of the entirety of EOD school for me, which is being in med hold. It was just ridiculous, right? And if anyone from the schoolhouse is listening to this, I really hope you are, because I was put in XDiv, right? I was put in X division. That's where they put all the misfits that are just waiting their class back up and all this, or get processed out. I'm like, I can't do anything, right? That's essentially where they get their manual labor for the schoolhouse. So I was like, I can't sweep, I can't mop, I can't do any of these things that they would like me to do. So because I'm just like all laid up, and I was like, I'll just bring a book to read, and I'm sitting in the admin office, and they're like, what are you doing? Like, I'm reading a book. Like, you can't do that. What? Like, what am I supposed to do that? And they're like, just sit there. I was like, okay. So I'm like, that's totally fucked up. I'm like trying to keep my mind at least sharp, so I'm not literally rotting in XDiv. And they're like, nope, don't do that. So then I got assigned to watch the foreign students. I was there, kind of. That was my duty, the foreign student watch.
Nice.
So I got to go to all their classes and hang out, which was kind of nice because I would still, I'm a very social person. I would interact with them and kind of like, hey, what are you guys learning about today and stuff like that. And I would interact with them. I would get to still be talking about EOD stuff, and that's how I kept my mind sharp during that. Thankfully, I got that duty to just do that instead of sit in that office and just stare at the admin people and like, okay, cool, this is awesome.
That's such a military thing to do. Be like, no, are you enjoying reading? You're now not allowed to.
Yeah. You look like you're learning something and trying to better yourself. Stop it.
We cannot have that here.
We don't want any free thinkers here.
Oh, that's funny. I came in a little bit later, like at 23, turned 23 in boot camp, and I had done a lot of motorcycle stuff before I came in, and I knew me, and I wanted a motorcycle so bad, but I was like, I can't do it. I know.
Smart.
I know that I will do not right things.
Yeah.
And I will get caught.
Yeah. Check and check.
Oh, dude, that's a intense way to start.
Had a very interesting way to start. Yeah. And it was funny, the new class checking in, because I was like kind of in the middle, taping lines. Like you're not just in core anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what they're calling their divisions nowadays, but whatever. Anyone that knows. But I would just stand outside in the barracks. This is when we had the other barracks, and there was like open hallways, and I would just be airing out. And the new class came in, they're like, "What the fuck is this dude?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, just be careful out there." Just kind of like planning these things like this happened at school.
Oh, that's awesome.
And yeah, that was pretty funny. But yeah, I was kind of known. I had a reputation at that point of like, because they got their in brief after that kind of meeting with me.
Yeah.
And like, that's what actually happened. Because that was now part of INDOC is my story. So I was like, yeah, that was me. It was stupid. Don't do that.
You made it.
Yeah.
You made it to the in brief.
I was like, TMDs is a son of a bitch, dude. Yeah. Just be careful.
Love it. You did. So actually, you went to Mobile Unit 12, right? That's basically where you spent.
The dirty dozen, yes.
Yeah. Did you want to go to the East Coast? Did you have a choice?
I did, actually. There was a toss-up. I was doing well enough at that point. I kind of screwed my head back on, and it was kind of like your shakeout of how you performed, and like your PRTs and your grades at that point is how we picked duty stations. Yeah. And obviously honor man, like valedictorian dude, got first pick. But then I wasn't top, I wasn't at the bottom, I was kind of right in the middle, which is kind of nice. But there were some East Coast builds, and all the overseas builds got taken up like immediately. Yeah. But I really didn't want to go overseas for a duty station early on. And Mobile Unit 12 was there, and it was honestly, for all the ladies out there, this is kind of a love story, because I had actually, did I think me and my girlfriend were broken up at the time. Mm-hmm. So I was dating we weren't really high school sweethearts. We started dating in senior year of high school. But she was doing her college thing. She's getting a little overwhelming for her. Like, she's pre-med, and like trying to deal with me and my antics is, a lot. So I totally get where she was coming from, and just wanted to focus on school. I was like, great, it's to sound cliche, if you love it, let it go, right? Because I was like, straight up, was like, okay, yeah, I am probably really stressing her out. She's actually trying to become a doctor, and was like, okay, whatever. I love her. If she's, let her do her thing. And another thing, that was just like that was my gut feeling. And she went to Cornell for pre-med. It's like, okay, I'll try to get back to the East Coast so I can kind of be closer to her, and I can go and visit her every now and then. Yeah. If you know what I mean. And just kidding. And maybe. And just in case her parents are listening to this, I don't know. Yeah. Great. Anyway.
You meant help her study.
Exactly.
Come on, people.
Yeah, that's why we started hanging out in high school anyway, so she was the valedictorian of our high school class, so.
It's like the opposite of you.
Clearly she needed my help with her homework. Yeah, I got class flirt. She got most likely to succeed. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I picked, there was some East Coast, and that was a huge driving force, honestly. Because you don't know anything about the mobile units when you're in. You can like maybe know a guy that was there that graduated before you, hit him up and like, hey, how's the mobile unit? Yeah. But you don't really know. I mean, they don't even know. They're new guys,
exactly.
So no one really knows anything about the mobile units when they're in school, unless they mud pop that one for like ever. And that's probably where they want to. That's either 100% where they want to go or 100% where they don't want to go.
Exactly.
So I didn't have that, and I was like, mobile unit 12. I like the number 12. It sounds cool. No, there was like, I think there was 2 builds for 2 and 1 for 12, and one of my buddies my original dive buddy was at 12. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go there. Right. That was another part of my decision. Was like, I know someone. He's a good dude. Like we did pretty much everything together up until I got my motorcycle accident. Then we kind of got separated. But then, so yeah, I decided on 12 for those reasons. Really, nice. I mean, there's no real way to have a well-informed decision about mobile units, which we should probably fix. I don't know. Maybe that sounds like a good idea.
I think you're right. I think until you like learn what the job actually is, even if somebody explained what's going on at the mobile units, you'd be like, yeah, that sounds cool. I don't know anything that you just said.
Right. Hold on, let me get the drool off.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Cool.
Yeah, exactly. So at that's what I was going to ask. So one thing I know everybody has some kind of weird story about this, but I don't think we've actually really brought it up. Airborne. Yes. Anything interesting happen when you went to Airborne?
Have you been like researching about me?
No,
like,
I have not.
Like,
straight up.
You've been like spying on me or something?
No, straight up. But like, I mean, I do know you a little bit. We've talked here and there, and I know you're good for a story in pretty much every facet. So
yeah, it was an interesting experience at Airborne.
Motorcycle?
No motorcycles at this point. I had a Silverado, Chevy Silverado, and I had the truck that was 10,000 more than I made in a year, but that's another story. Another really smart decision that I made. But no, Airborne was cool because we're all like E4s now, and in the Navy, you got your it's a third class petty officer, and your rank insignia is an eagle with one chevron, right? Anyone in the Army, especially Army privates, they think that is a colonel, right? So we're like walking around. I'm like, dude, that is a drastically different looking insignia for one. It's huge. A colonel insignia is huge. And then like our little crows, what we call them, right? They're like walking around, like we're just like getting saluted, like super. I'm like, what is happening right now? Like, sure, I'll salute you back. Like, carry on, private. Like, so we would just have fun at the Army's expense with that. But there was a dude from, I think he was a Det Norfolk guy, and he had never gone to Airborne, but he had just finally got orders to go to Airborne. So he was in our class, which was awesome. He's a first class master tech. Yeah. So we're like, oh, look at this dude, he's God. And he was in my my whatever we call, I don't even know what we call them, my company. What do we call them at Airborne? Yeah, I don't know. Our platoon, company, whatever. So he and I got to be really good friends, and he was just like us, like super immature and just wanted to play games. It's like, man, if this is what everyone at the Mobian is like, this is going to be freaking awesome. Yeah. Little did I know, it was like, this is going to be exactly like that. But yeah, I mean, dude, we would do stupid stuff because, I mean, it's Airborne. So it's like you have so much free time. Mm-hmm. Like instead of doing, we started doing the let's throw rocks in each other's helmets type game. Yes. You know what I mean? We started there, but then we graduated to let's see how far away we can stand and still spit water in each other's mouths. Dude. Totally gross.
I love it.
But yeah, it's like, especially like you're drinking out of this canteen that's probably moldy as shit. And it's like, there's no way to clean it, but we're still like, you have to have this thing. So we're like drinking it and just like, oh my God, like just like kind of squirting water in each other's mouths. And the Army people are just like, what the actual F is going on right now? Like we thought the Navy was jacked up. We heard all these stories, but this is like next level.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, that was funny. That was hilarious.
Yeah. I do remember how just the faces of the Army dudes that are like, something's wrong with you. Like there's something wrong with us, but there's something really wrong with you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
And it's funny how that never changed.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
No matter where we went and what stage of my career is like, that was always, some of them already knew kind of like, oh, there's Navy guys here.
Yeah.
They would brief their guys like, just go with it.
Yep.
Don't try to resist anything. Just do what they say and just everything. You'll probably have a good time.
If you resist, it will only get worse.
Exactly. Just know that there's nothing you can do to stop their antics and just join in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. Getting to the mobile unit. How was that experience?
It was good. I essentially got fired from my first platoon right out of the gate because the LCPO couldn't pronounce my name. I don't want to like that sounds kind of like an EO type thing nowadays. But he told me that later on. I was like, yeah, no, move the magnet. I'm like, dude, that's fucked up. And this is when we were on a platoon together, like down the road.
Oh man.
And but yeah, so I got bumped off that platoon. I mean, it was an NSW platoon. I was a new guy, so like, what is this dude even doing on this platoon anyway? Yeah. So it kind of made sense now. Before I was like, damn, man, like what the woe is me.
Yeah.
Grant, I didn't know he couldn't pronounce my name, and that was the real reason why I got moved off the platoon.
That's so funny.
I won't say his name, so he doesn't get everything. He won't get fired,
right?
Because in this day,
exactly,
he'd be donezo. So you're welcome. You know who you are. So yeah, I got put on 12-2, original 12-2 as a company, 12-2-1, and then I got shifted over 12-2-2. So body bingo going on, and that was CES to Afghanistan. And CES doesn't even exist anymore. Combat Expeditionary Support. I don't know if you would call that a MOB team nowadays. I guess. I don't know.
Probably.
Maybe. But yeah, it was Combat Expeditionary Support to Afghanistan. We were going to Helmand, and we are going to support the Marines down in Helmand with like RCP, that type stuff. Yeah. And we were in the training unit, and so that's kind of what we thought our mission was. And we were in the training unit, and then our company senior chief walks in the room. We were underwater at that point, and you know, it's like already new guy struggles and trying to learn the lay of the land and figuring stuff out. And we had done our first trip out to Fort Pickett, you know, the inaugural trip to Fort, the baptism of fire, if you will. I don't know if this even goes on, but there's like all kinds of like extra drills and like new guy stuff. And like, it was really cool. It was tough. It was a dick dragger for sure, but it was awesome. Like it really cemented our platoon. Like I feel like we really came together and we were really high performing at that point. And not just that, but like competent. And as a new guy, that was when I felt confident, because we were just doing drill after drill after drill, and finish the drill, rejock your gear, boom. It was like that kind of mentality. And it was awesome. Right after that, I was like, okay, this is what being on a competent team feels like. And in my limited perspective at the time. And so we go to 2-2 and we're in the training unit, and our company senior chief comes in and it's like, hey, an RFF just came down the pipe, request for forces. And it was for the 75th Ranger Regiment, and they were requesting Navy EOD support specifically to support their battalions in Afghanistan. And there's a way different scope of responsibility than our CES team that we currently were to now do this Ranger mission. And he was very straightforward. I don't know if he was like trying to do a scare tactic or whatever. It worked for some people, but he essentially turned the conversation to the new guys. He said it was to everyone, but he was talking to us. He's like, if you don't feel comfortable with your skill set, no harm, no foul. Just let me know, and we'll remove you from the platoon. Right? It's like, okay. He's like, this is a big deal. You're going to have a lot more responsibility, a lot more autonomy, and you're going to be responsible for a strike force, essentially. And it's like, damn, like that's kind of crazy and unprecedented at the time. Yeah. And I just remember thinking, I was like, is like that go with your gut thing, right? That was like the theme is like, this is what you should be doing, right? Yeah. This is, you've been trained, you have a great team. You're not leaving tomorrow. We're now shifting gears. We're going to retool our training to fit that mission. And this is like back in the day when that was a thing, right? It's like, okay, this is now the mission. We're gonna tailor the training now to go to this mission, right? And all the well-rounded kind of BS things went out the window at that point, and now we're like solely focused on doing that, which I thought was great, right? Yeah. And that was my experience of doing that. And we were doing like the well-rounded thing, which I thought was good at the time, but then it was like, okay, now you gotta focus on this. And I really appreciated that. And looking back on, I really appreciate the leadership that fought, because that just didn't happen. Mm-hmm. They fought for that to happen, and that was key, I feel like, to our success as a team. We never lost anyone. None of our team got hit, thank God. And I think it was a testament to, because we were definitely in some weird, hokey situations, and everyone did the right thing. And I mean, we were also on really good teams. I feel like across the board, like talking to the guys like in country is like, yeah, how's your platoon? You know, it's like good. You know, we got a good group of guys. Like everyone's pretty locked on. So that was really cool. But yeah, I always attribute our EOD team success to that refocusing of the skill set of, okay, cool. Yeah, we technically are on the docket for all this. However, this is now what you're going to be doing. So train to that, you know, be good at all the other stuff, but we need to be brilliant at all of these basic surface IED, dismount and patrol, like every single, like the basics of how you do that. Everyone needs to be able to do that with their eyes closed.
Yeah.
And that was huge. And my one of the guys in the platoon, also fellow new guy, we graduated EOD school together. He called our company senior chief on the way home from the training unit and told me he didn't want to be on the platoon.
Yeah.
And when I got home, because we were living together, we were roommates, he told me, I was like, dude, why would you why didn't you like talk to someone? And you know, he's like, I can't fault the guy for this because he just went with his gut. And he's like, I did not. And I really, at first I was like, what the, like, I was like, dude, you're insane. Like people would kill to be in your position right now. And he just looked at me and was like, I don't feel right. And like, kind of like our company senior chief was saying, is like, I don't feel confident that I would do that well enough to not get anyone killed. I was like, okay, I can respect that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you got to be real with the person looking back in the mirror. And that really resonated with me. It's like, okay, all right, you know, good choice then.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Going to the training side, I think it's important to start out with a little bit of everything, because that is technically your job. And at some point you're probably going to have to do something. You look at like my career, did a little bit of, never on MCM team, but did the underwater stuff on the first couple, and then like kind of 10 years of not any of that. And then now it's back. So it's a good thing I had a little bit of that at the beginning. But as soon as you know, and as soon as you're like, okay with that stuff, right? With a little bit of everything, if you've got to focus, you have to modify training to fit that focus, because you cannot be good at absolutely everything. Yeah. Anybody that thinks that is lying to themselves, and if they're saying it out loud, they're lying to others.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's kind of dangerous, especially if like who's around and listening. Like if you have up and coming EOD guys and gals listening to that, it's like, no.
Yeah.
That's not accurate,
Agreed.
You know? And yeah, it was, I will definitely eat my words here, because after all, like, you know, 2 Ranger pumps, the NSW, and then the East Africa thing, it's like, I did my LPO ride on an MCM team.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy shit, here we go. I know nothing about, and that's another interesting story in and of itself. I don't know how much time we have, but
much as you want.
It was a very steep learning curve. I will just say that, going from complete soft, essentially my entire career, to that LPO, especially it was me and our chief were the 2 master techs on the team. Everyone else was brand new out of school. Everyone.
Yeah.
And so it's not a problem, but it's definitely a thing you have to tackle. It's a challenge for sure. Plus, I had no clue what I was doing MCM wise.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm like talking to the chief, I'm like, dude, I need you to like really take me under your wing and get me up to speed on all this MCM stuff, because I have no clue what I'm doing. I can dive, I can survive underwater, great, you know, but actual like procedures and like the whole, it's a big thing, right? Yeah. MCM. It's not just like, oh yeah, we're going out and fun diving. It is a big. There's a lot to it, and I really didn't appreciate that until I was like, oh my god, there's a lot to this. Yeah. I don't know what to who's needs. Yeah, it was a lot. So that's a whole story in and of itself.
Yeah, I think that's where I first met you, when you were, because I came over, I was doing my master board, and I can't remember if it was I think it was it Clifford the Big Red Dog? Was that your chief at the time?
He was my company
Okay.
chief at the time. He had to step down from that. And that's a testament of leadership right there. I'm telling you right now, because he was getting his company ride, and then our LCPO essentially quit the platoon during team training, and we didn't have a chief. And so I was like acting LCPO as the LPO and the LPO, and our officer was a JO. So I was essentially the OIC, the acting LCPO, and the LPO. Granted, I love our OIC, who it was. He did freaking phenomenal.
Yeah.
He did a great job stepping up and really kind of stepping into that role, and is great dude. But yeah, that was Cliff the Big Red Dog, Cliff the Big Red Chief, as he would like to call himself, which is like totally such a dad thing to say. But yeah, he stepped down from his company spot to fulfill this LCPO ride. So now he's not going to get that check in the box to now fill a need because of this mega deficiency. And this is like, that was kind of mind blowing for me as a a master tech, LPO, E6, right? I just done all these teams, and now I'm doing this. Like, it's everything we hear growing up in EOD is like, there's no better position than being the LCPO of a platoon.
Yeah.
Nothing like it. And this dude, and I'll say Modesto Hernandez, I don't even care, because this dude is a shit show. He is no longer in EOD. He retired. But that's the fucked up part, is he retired as an EOD tech, as a master EOD tech. He had the best job in our community from that's popular opinion. That is not just me, right? That's just what we hear growing up. When you become a LCPO of a team, there's nothing like that's the best job ever. I was like, great. This dude's a LCPO of a team. He literally just quit our platoon during team training at the training unit, and he still has a crab on his chest. Why is that happening, right? What is going on? And I don't want to get into the politics and all that kind of stuff and like who was who, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was where I was like, man, that is kind of fucked up. And what had happened was he was just like, it was underwater, right? And he was supposed to be the expert in underwater. He had done all underwater. That's what he did, his bread and butter and everything. Is like, dude, I am going to rely on you heavily to help me out. And he was just doing basic safety stuff like in underwater that I don't expect the new guys to do more than once, if that. And I'm like, dude, like, I just had a frank conversation with him. And again, this is where I was like, do I have this conversation with him? Do I not? Like, is it my place? Is it not? Who is supposed to be having this? And it's like, dude, you have to have this conversation with him, right? Like, talking to myself. And I'm like, okay, I mean, it's definitely going to be a hard conversation, but it has to happen. And I'm like, hey, man to man, all rank aside, everything else aside, like just human to human, essentially. What you're doing is not okay. You're the LCPO of the platoon, and we have all new guys, and they deserve to be taught the right thing to do, right? Yeah. They deserve that. That is their right. They don't have many rights as new guys, but that is one of them. They deserve to be led and to be taught. And you're not doing that. And you're not doing that for me either. And it's like basic stuff where I was like, you really need to decide if you want to be here or not, like in this community.
Yeah.
Because the stuff you're doing is not indicative to wearing that badge. And so why don't you just go home and ask yourself if you want to be here. And if the answer is no, go turn your badge into the CMC. Right? Like, no harm, no foul. That's just man to man. That's what you should do. And you got to do that. And if you do want to be here, you need to step up to the plate and start training these guys and showing them the right thing to do. Oh my God, I will never forget this. I thought he was going to fight me because we're like standing outside the training unit and it was kind of chilly. So he's like, has this jacket on and our OIC is standing right there also. And he just like reaches in his pocket. I was like, great, he's going to fucking pull out a knife. This is going to be a fucking shit show. And he like comes back around. I'm like, all right, here we go. Let's fucking go. And he takes out his cell phone and smashes it on the ground. I'm like, what? What just happened? I'm like, great. So everything still applies, and now you got to go get a new phone on top of everything we just talked about. And our OIC, I'll never forget the look on his face. Like, it just burned in my mind. He was just standing there, like, mouth agape, like, why would you do that? What the fuck is wrong with you? And I'm like, I just go, let him go. I get a text at 3:00 in the morning that night, and is essentially like, fuck you, motherfucker. I was like, great, cool, from him. And that was that. Went in the morning, told my OS, I was like, hey, did you get any weird messages? Like, no, but come here. And he told me that our LCPO had essentially called our CMC and quit the platoon. I was like, perfect. So now we have a platoon full of new guys, and this dude actually heeded my advice and quit the platoon. So awesome. And no, we figured it out, though, and it was great. And Cliff did step in, and he stepped down to step up, I think, in leadership, because that was a huge deal. It was not about him at the end of the day, because he could have very easily been like, no, find someone else. I don't know if he could have easily done that, but he could have really leaned in on that position. But he didn't. He didn't fight it a lot at all, I would say, and he stepped in and helped us out.
Yeah. Two things. One, like, it's super important as a junior guy that knows something is wrong to bring it up. Like, I know how awkward that is and how awkward it can feel, because you're like, this isn't my space to do this. This should be done at a different level. But so, like, there's too many times where you can think of, and I don't want to give the illusion that it happens like every day, but there are definitely times where I can think of where somebody thought they should do it, but then didn't, and just time drags out, and you can see the like spiral down of the individuals and the team.
It gets worse and worse.
It does. Yeah. It does. And sometimes, the best case scenario, that conversation happens and the person's like, oh crap, I didn't even realize how jacked up I was. Yeah. I appreciate you coming to me. I mean, let's be real. More than likely, the initial conversation will be exactly like, screw you, man. And then maybe the next day, like, all right.
You think I'm fucked up? Let me tell you how fucked up you are.
Exactly. But then, the realization, the self-reflect, like, okay, I understand. I understand where he's coming from. Okay. I haven't been getting back in the books like I should have. I've done other things for a long time. I got to relearn this. Yeah. And I need to make sure that I owe that, just like you said, that is 100%. And I totally agree with you. There are not a lot of rights as a new guy. You should be earning your place and proving that EOD school is a really long selection phase. You learn how to learn. And then
you learn how to drive motorcycles, how to survive, crashes, all kind of stuff.
And then you get to the mobile unit, and that's where you learn how to be an EOD tech, like a Navy EOD tech specifically. And I don't know, like, but one thing they are owed is being taught correctly.
Absolutely. And it's their life at the end of their lives at the end of the day. It's like, these are the tools that you will need.
Absolutely.
How you use them, that is on you to you got to bring that to the table.
Exactly.
But yeah, that was huge to me, and that's why I felt. Yeah, I mean, it had to be. And what you said is so spot on. Where it's like we delay these hard conversations, and I've seen that. It's happened to me on platoons. And it's just like, that is what we have to do. As like we always talk about, it's like, oh yeah, the brotherhood. It's like, I love this guy like a brother. Then have a hard conversation with him, right? Because if you do love him like he's your brother, that is his life in the balance. And I expect him or her, right, to do the same thing for me. Like if I'm jacked up, I need to know it, because I mean, we are doing a million things and we got our blinders up. And it's like, yo, dude, like, you are acting a fool right now. And that happened, at EOD. That's another story I had at EOD, because once I was in my surface class, right, I'm like the class clown, obviously, and we're in the galley, and I'm just like being loud as like anything, just telling jokes and like just cutting up, and my Army guys just, I got them dying laughing. But then like there was another Navy class in front of us, and one of my buddies, who's like one of my best friends still, just like turns around and is like, dude, shut up. Like, you're acting like an idiot, And I was like, damn, that kind of sucked, because he just like essentially yelled at me in front of all my friends. And I didn't appreciate it really at the time. I was like, damn, he's kind of a dick. Like, I don't know what's going on with him, but then I took a look back, and it's like, he seriously helped me out, because that was always like, since that was so traumatic, it was such a traumatic experience for me, getting yelled at in front of my friends in the chow hall, that I was like, okay, maybe he's right. And I just really need to rein it in a little bit and focus on, remember why I'm here, you know?
Yeah.
And so, that was huge. Right. And he was probably, he was like, dude, I wanted to punch you in the face so bad. Like, I just wanted to turn around and punch you, because you're just so annoying. I was like, yeah, I get that a lot. But he's, no, it was awesome. It was awesome. I love that guy.
Yeah. One of the ways I looked at being LCPO of a team is, I thought, and it is, I would agree, it's one of the best job, but it's also the absolute most stressful job. Because like, as an LPO dude, that is a solid job, right? Especially if you either know what you're doing in that mission area, or have somebody that's over you that knows what you're doing. Because man, you get the tasks, and then you're like, boys, let's get this done. Like, get things ready, go out there, you have a good time. You're probably like supervisors for most things, so you don't have to do, it's super cold in the water. You probably don't have to get in the water. You can wear that nice puffy jacket on the boat.
Heck yeah.
But when you're LCPO on the team, now you have to set up all the training. You have to it is your job to make sure that everything gets done, so that the way I looked at it is, when we deploy, if somebody gets hurt or killed, it's only because of two reasons. It's because either they screwed up or stuff happens. Like, and those are two things. Not everybody can be perfect every time, right? And even if one of those two things happen, it's going to suck for everybody on the team. It's going to suck for the dude who trained them. But the way I looked at it is, one of those two reasons, right? It's not because I didn't do something. Like, if the reason was I didn't train them enough, or I just straight up didn't train them on something because I didn't know it.
Right.
Like, that's 100% on me, and I wasn't cool with that. But if you go into that, and I think a lot of people kind of have that going up through the dudes that we all respect tend to, whether they say it like that or a different way, they take on, you get on an MCM team as LPO, right? And like, it kind of is on you if the dude doesn't really know what's going on, right? And you're willing to like figure it out, right? Like, you're going the extra mile. You probably spent a bunch of time talking to people who've done it before to like, hey, this thing, we're kind of doing this, and I kind of know what's wrong. Can you kind of tell me what's right? And you take it on yourself, because it's all of us want to be trained right, and none of us want to go out the door with a box not checked. Like, that, hey, we, and not that like just check the box, but like check the boxes in, I actually know it, we've completed it, I know everybody else knows it.
And we know why that is even on the list.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's huge. And especially in a leadership position, like you're saying, it's like we want to do that. So no one, it's like, if we feel like we did not give our team the tools that they needed to survive, that is going to haunt us for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
That's going to be hard. And like you said, stuff happens, and that's kind of a great segue to, I'm sorry, I don't want to jump ahead
Nah,
if
dude,
you have
get it.
questions,
Get it,
but
man.
it's like sometimes stuff happens, but I have now come to realize that there's something that is going on that is not being talked about a lot, and it was never being talked about when I was in, and I started talking about it at the end of my active duty career, but I had an instance where this very well could have been a stuff happens kind of thing, where I was standing next to an ID for 40 minutes and didn't even know it.
Jeez.
But I have a whole backstory of, kind of that leads up to that moment. And the long story short is I was justifying like the workup cycle and everything. We're going to Afghanistan. So it's like we're going to war and all this other stuff. And we're going to party it up, right? We're going to live it up because we could fucking die, right? And I was like, thinking about it at the time, I was like, okay, this is totally appropriate mentality. And yeah, we're going to live it up because I want to enjoy my life. YOLO, right? That's carpe diem for people that are not that educated. But anyway,
I like that.
it's, that's seriously, we took it to the freaking max, right? I mean, we were living like rock stars without rock star money, champagne taste with a beer budget, but we were still buying the champagne. And it got to a point where I was on that deployment and I was more worried about, and I didn't even know this. This is the scariest part of the whole thing is like, I didn't even know that I was this distracted because like we were just talking about like training, being laser focused. Like we know all the things, we have the tools, we know how to employ them. We just did this really extensive workup cycle to get really good at our skill. And I'm on deployment, on mission, doing the job that we just spent countless hours and money training to do. And I'm sitting there my teammate, I was with a SEAL team, and my EOD teammate I guess a lot of EOD guys listen to this podcast, but for anyone that doesn't know, there are 2 EOD guys on every SEAL platoon that goes out, right? There's always that EOD continuity there. And he was working on what he thought was an ID. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to hang back, provide support if he needs it, because we were dismounted and all we had was what we could carry, right? So he's prosecuting this thing, and me and another buddy of mine were holding security, and I was just like in an advantageous position so I could give him stuff if he needed it or whatever the case may be, an extra pull line, whatever, a safe area, if you will, if he wanted to come back there, and then we connect mine, and all this stuff. I'm not going to get into tactics, but I was there for him, right? That was my job at that time, to be supporting a supporting teammate for him. Then detonation occurred about 30 meters behind where me and my buddy were standing. It was right near our C2 element. Thankfully, this was set up very poorly. It was a small ID, and it was set up very poorly. The explosives were degraded. It was like a small mortar, whatever. But it was like there was an embankment, and we were kind of near a little pathway that like was very agricultural. It was weird. It was like in the woods, but there was farmland. Totally weird situation. I was like, what are we doing here? Yeah. But there was like an embankment that went down to a river, like a little stream, actually. The river was kind of up where my buddy was working on ID. And so that goes off. I just like kind of yell up. I was like, hey, I got it. Like, you just keep doing what you're doing. We're all good, because no one got injured from this. Thank God. Right. It was, again, set up like it was on this side of the bank. So they're standing up on the top of the hill, kind of slopes down, and it's off here. So the explosive wave kind of went outward, and everything was the ground was kind of wet. So that helped out too. And it low ordered. Yeah. So it didn't detonate with full potential. Nice. And I'm over there as like a small mortar collecting samples, right? I'm gathering some of the pieces. It was a cell phone initiated ID. I was like, okay, that should have keyed me in. And right there, it's like, all right, RCID just went off. Why the fuck did that just happen? Yeah. Right. And I know why it happened. I'm not going to talk about it because of other things. But anyway, that went off. And I'm sitting there doing the site exploitation, the post-blast analysis, and then our interpreter comes up with an Afghan local police officer. It's like, hey, this dude says that there's another IED. and it's ready to go off. I was like, okay, where is it at? You know? And he points over here. I'm like, look over there. I'm like, no fucking way. There's an ID over there. Because where he pointed was where I was just standing with my buddy in that security position for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And he's like, no. He said that, okay, one, why he knew that was super sketchy.
Yeah.
How he knew it, even sketchier. So I'm like, okay, you know, whatever. And this is like a very hard story for me to tell, especially when I first told it, because it's essentially a huge fuck up on my part. That I now talk about because I value the importance of the lesson over my own personal ego, right? Because I feel like this may save lives down the road. I got super lucky. So just a little disclaimer. I discredited his intelligence pretty much. Went over to the spot, didn't clear to it, didn't do shit.
Just walked over.
Just walked over, was like, okay. I had my detector. I'd like just to kind of like go through the motions, like, okay, yeah, whatever. This dude's full of shit. Everything looks disturbed and everything looks like trash, whatever. I'll go over there. I uncover it, like huge ring off. I was like, what the fuck? And this where I got that hit was about 6 feet away from where me and my buddy were standing, which was 30 meters in front of where our C2 element was. And I uncover and that hit. And there was a paint can sized directional frag charge. It's about 1,000 ball bearings lined the front of this thing, like pressed in. So it's like a concave shape. It's like the focused fragmentation charge.
Yeah.
About the size of a paint can, set up, ready to rock, cell phone, everything. I was like, fuck. In that moment, I thought about so many different things in the span of 1 second. And like just my body language, like I can't tell everyone like, hey, this is what I'm doing, but
Right.
everyone's essentially watching me go over and do this, and like they see my body language, so they're like seeking cover at this point in time because there's no other option, right? This thing can go off in a moment's notice.
Yeah.
And I'm like, god damn it, you know. And if this was a movie, like I'm sure it would be like all Hollywood up and like be super glamorous, but this was like one of the shittiest moments I think in my career because I didn't find it. Right. I was told it was there, and I uncover it, and I'm like, I go hands on this ID, render it safe, and I'm just like I'm like staring at the phone. I'm like, it seems like an eternity, and it was probably like 30 seconds, but it had 4 missed calls on it.
Oh shit.
And 40 minutes, me and my buddy were standing over there, and the conversation was not like, hey, yeah, everything's all good, you know, it cleared this, cleared that, like, you know, blah, 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 blah. I was asking my buddy if his tax-free pay had started, if his hazardous fire imminent danger pay had started, if all these extra pays had started, because I was so worried about paying off my bills and shit like that I've accumulated, that it was no longer even subconsciously bothering me and keeping and like kind of taking up bandwidth. I was verbalizing it out loud on a target or on an infill in hazardous fire, in imminent danger. So now I am not even doing my job. I'm so worried about my personal finance nightmare that I've created that I didn't even do 5s and 25s, like basic stuff, right? Not going to talk about, but it's just like other things I could have done. I just didn't do that I 100% should have done because I was not focused on what I had to do when I had really thought I was.
Yeah.
I like, that's that whole, like, you've reminded me of like, we might not even realize how jacked up we are for like, you know, however long until someone tells us. I didn't even realize what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I really thought I was locked out. And that is the scariest part of that whole situation. I was definitely my worst critic. My team was great. I mean, they're good. Even my EOD team was like, dude, I fucking walked past that thing. And I was like, yeah, but I was standing next to it for 40 fucking minutes, dude. Like,
yeah.
And I look back at the pictures and it's very obvious that there's something right there. Very obvious.
Really?
Oh yeah, there's markers and everything. And I just wasn't doing it. And my you know, the team guys I was with, they were a great team, good group of dudes. And they were just like very bolstering. And, but yeah, I couldn't really let that go for a long time because obviously for an EOD tech, for everyone, the best case scenario is no one dies.
Right.
No one dies. For an EOD tech, the best, or whatever we're calling ourselves nowadays, EOD operators, fuck yeah. The best case scenario is I tell you something's clear. I get a weird feeling about that. And I'm like, hey, hold on a second. Let me just go verify. And I pay the price for it not being clear. Worst case scenario is I tell you it's clear. You go ahead and you pay the ultimate price for me telling you that that was clear. So that never set well with me. Set well with me. And for a long time, that just kind of, I could not sleep at night after that. It was like, man, I need to really focus, which is kind of a vicious circle because now I'm worried about the situation. I know I need to get sleep so I can be actually focused and pay attention. But now I'm so worried about that happening again that I can't sleep.
Yeah.
And now it's detracting even further. And it's just like degrading everything. And the root of that whole thing was I was so distracted in my personal life. And I thought I was really good at compartmentalization. But I'm just here to tell everyone that that wall that we like to put up is permeable.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time. We can be so good at compartmentalizing work and home up to a point where home, if we're not managing that properly, will creep into work. Mm-hmm. Work, if we're not managing that properly, will creep into our personal life. And it will happen at the most inopportune time of your life. And what I equate that my whole story of like, you don't have to be face to face with an IED and have it in between your legs. And like your life is literally hanging in the balance of who knows. Like, I mean, there was someone looking at us, staring at us, trying to call this phone and it just wasn't going off. However, you don't have to be in that exact situation for that. I guarantee people are in that same situation every day of their lives where that IED is someone you truly care about, right? Your life will be drastically different without this relationship, right? When you are not paying attention to that because of everything else going on in your life that you're mismanaging, that is at risk of detonating in your face when you least expect it.
Yeah.
And you know as well as I do, when something detonates, it's gone, right? There's nothing left. High order, it's gone. Complete consumption of material. That's gone. And that is happening more often than anyone is admitting, right? And we don't want to talk about it because it sucks. It's not funny.
Right.
It's painful. It sucks. It's not a good story. But that's a hard conversation that we need to be having. And I just want to know, and this still kind of keeps me up at night, how many guys and gals were in my position, and this is like across the service, right? In Iraq, Afghanistan, in that length of 20 plus years that we were overseas in these spaces, how many people were in the same situation that I was in and did not get lucky?
Right. Yeah.
There's no way to tell, right? That metric isn't calculated. It's not tracked. It's impossible to track because no one would know my story if I died.
Right.
Like no one would know why I was distracted. No one would know why I was doing. It would have sucked for my entire team because now my chief would have been like, is it something I did? They would have owned the shit out of that, you know? Is this something I did? Did something just happen? Like, was this a freak accident? Like, what happened? They would have saw the pictures. They would have saw the marks. I'm like, what the fuck was he thinking?
Yeah.
You know? And then my family would have been delivered flags. My teammate, I mean, who knows the effect that would have on my immediate team for the rest of their lives, you know?
Yeah.
The survivors of that, because my other teammate would have been dead also. His family would have got flags. Our C2 element would have been catastrophically wounded at a minimum if that had gone off because of the proximity and how it was oriented. So there was a lot hanging in the balance of this distraction. And it's so huge. And that's kind of what that started my whole, I wish I could say that was the catalyst of what I do now, but it's not because there was no debrief of that situation from what the root of what actually happened.
Yeah.
It was all like what we thought happened until I was able to do a self-reflection and a new guy on that same platoon I was talking about earlier, the MCM team, sat down with him and he helped me out with a budget. He like would not shut up about budgeting. I was like, dude, dude, no one cares about this budget, right? I had the same opinion about budgets that pretty much everyone has. You hear the word budget, you're like, I'm going to punch something because that's so...
I'm not an accountant. Get out of here, nerd.
I just want to spend my money and live my life.
Yeah.
But that was the first time that I looked at my personal finances in real life. You know, like it was out, it was written down. I was looking at it. I wasn't thinking about like, well, I know I make this much money. I know I spend this much money roughly. And I can move the things and make it work, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was doing. And it was working for the most part, but it really wasn't because I was so damn distracted that it almost cost me my life.
Yeah.
And worse, it almost cost me my teammates' lives. And that's when I lost it, dude. I saw my budget or it wasn't even a budget. It was just like, this is how much money I make. This is all my expenses. And this is all the shit that I use my money. I was like, holy shit, this is what is wrong. Like that was the catalyst.
Yeah.
I lost it, dude. My buddy's like,
what's happening?
The actual F is happening right now, dude. And he's a new guy. I'm his LPO. And so it's kind of weird. But I mean, we were great buddies. Yeah. And he's just like, I'm like, dude, I think you may have just saved my life.
Yeah.
In ways that I don't even know how to explain right now. And that's what the catalyst was. So I started to look at that. I was like, how can I eliminate all of these inessentials out of my life? Like, why am I doing this? I'm like, I just got back to my roots of an EOD tech of like, I don't do anything in my job without a list, right? Nothing. Mm-hmm. I don't learn anything new without a list. School was all lists. Everything we look at are lists, like how to prosecute an ID. Let's see, that's a 9-line. There's actually a list with 9 things on it, you know? Even a missed report, like when we have a casualty, like sure, that's not a long list, but it's still like you are going to send up this first, then this, then this, then this, just to get someone out. When there's a mine strike, I need to do these things. Like what is going to kill me first? What's going to kill him first? How do I prosecute that and manage all the other shit? What do I need to focus on first, right? What is going to kill me right now? When I walk through this doorway, what is the first thing that's going to kill me in that moment, right? In those first few steps. I'm not even worried about what I'm going to do in the back room yet. What am I going to do right here that is going to kill me, right? That's how we think at work. When I am diving, there's many lists, right? Yeah. MCM is like mass cargo movers / list making extraordinaires, right? Exactly. I had one of our new guys, thankfully, was an engineer. He graduated from Penn State, and it was like he actually invented some machinery and stuff like that. No kidding. I'm like, you will make all of our lists. Awesome, right? Because that's what it takes to survive, to win. Yep. And I'm like, a budget is a list. It's an ECL for managing your personal finances. So I started to look at it that way, and I was like, okay, now it's starting to make sense. This is actually how you manage money. And then I just like really tried to consume a lot of things about like not really how to invest money or like how to gain wealth, but really how to manage your money that you have. Yeah. And that was huge. I looked at that. I'm like, no one is talking about this. No one is really doing this. It's all like anything you hear with money. It's like, oh, insurance and personal, financial advising and this and this. And I was like, I'm not even at those spots right now. Right. I need to know how to freaking have more money than month on the 30th or the 31st or the 28th, if we're talking about February. But that's what I needed. And to admit that felt weird because I'm like, we want to feel like we're good at this stuff, right? As men and just as people in general, it's like, we want to, especially if we're providing for our family, and like we want to feel like we are good at what we're doing. Yeah. And it's hard to have that conversation of like, I am not good with this huge aspect of my life that a lot of people depend on. Granted, that was my exact situation in that IED event where I had the perception of being this really good professional, and I had a good reputation. That was like my 3rd deployment to Afghanistan at that point. And so I had a good reputation of handling myself as an EOD professional, yet here I was lacking basic fundamental EOD skills, not lacking, I guess I should say, I just was not doing it.
Yeah.
I would say it was EOD negligence, and I can say that for sure, because that's what I should have been doing, and I just wasn't doing it.
Yeah.
Negligence. And that's what I was doing in my personal finances as well. It's like, okay, let's figure this out. And then, yeah, and I was like, okay, this actually works. This is how it needs to be done, right? And this, I started to like apply to like different industries and like kind of other people that I knew that were not in the military that made way more money than I did. I was like, okay, let's just look at this if you trust me. And I wasn't charging anyone at this point because I was just trying to get good. And I was trying to like collect data. I was like, okay, does this actually work just for me? Or is this like something that can be applied to a lot of other people?
Yeah.
And the answer was yes. It's like, man, if we just focus our energy on very specific steps, this is how you win with money. When we're like, oh yeah, you know, I'll invest this much in my TSP or 401k to get the match and try to do all of the other like a million things that we want to do in our lives. It's like, I'm doing every single one of these things is getting a tiny bit of me, right? Now, let's just pause retirement for a second. Put that over there. Let's pause all these other things. Let's actually just get our foundation set so it's rock solid, right? So we actually have a basis to operate. So now we do that, then we can actually invest legit money into our retirement savings, not just to get the match, but we are maxing out accounts that I'm talking about. So now you talk about wealth. It's like you cannot be wealthy without having a good foundation. You can build a great house and it'll look fantastic. And if it's on the sand, you're stupid, right? You're stupid, right? Anyone, engineer or otherwise, that's biblical. It
is.
Like you need to build your house upon the rock, right? The wise man builds his house upon the rock. And obviously, because when the storm comes, the sand will wash away. So everything that we can build up, which is exactly what I was doing, I built it up, and on the sand, like the storm came and it all washed out, right? So then I was like, I will never be in that situation again. I will never put my teammates at risk or my family at risk that drastically because I'm worried about money. Ever. So that's what I did. And I was like, great. I became a personal finance coach, and that's kind of what spawned me, or what kind of propelled me into what I do now as a personal finance coach. And then, you know, I can talk about how I made the leap to leadership, but it was huge because that was like affecting that. Personal finance affects every aspect of our lives, every aspect, no matter who we are, no matter how much money we make. I mean, I talk to a lot of broke physicians that are making well into the six figures, and it's just like, I talk to single moms that have $300,000 of student debt for their kids that they signed Parent Plus loans for, and they're making $50,000 to $60,000. It's like that situation looks insurmountable.
Yeah.
But these two categories, let's say a physician that makes well into six figures and this single mom over here, they're behaving the same exact way with money. This one has more zeros on the end of it, but the decisions and the choices are exactly the same. So that's when I got, it's like, it's not about the money.
Right.
This is like behavioral stuff that we can train and teach people. It doesn't matter how much money you make. Yes, if this person really focuses, that has a really good income, they can get out of their situation. They can improve their situation a lot faster than this person, right? For sure. But there are ways that we can help her also.
Yeah.
And I have, and it works. It's been proven now. And that's kind of my life goal now that I've transitioned out of the military. Is I've transitioned that purpose of, I don't want people to serve for a paycheck, right? I want them to serve for a purpose. And I was serving for a paycheck. Everything I raised my right hand for, and that I love my brothers about, like all that rhetoric that I used to talk about, it's like I crumpled that up and I threw it in the trash because I was serving for a paycheck at that point. And then once I was able to refocus, it's like, now this is like, it became crystal clear. This is what I need to be doing. And this is super important to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is important to figure out what situation you're in first, and then you can start figuring out the moves to make. But a lot of times we do it the other way. We start thinking, with everything, with finance, with the job too, like, you got to figure out what you're good at in EOD to figure out what you need to work on. Whereas a lot of times we're like, well, I'm going to work on this because usually it's probably because I like it, right? Like
It's sexier.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like one of the things I've done, I'm not great with money. I'm definitely not a personal finance coach or anything.
Well,
but
we're having the right talk. You're talking to the right guy.
well, one of the things I've done, I'll tell you 2 stories. Michelle, stop listening now if you are. She doesn't, so I don't have to worry about that. But I have this ridiculous spreadsheet, and it has literally absolutely everything. It has every money coming into every single account that I have, because I separate things by like I have accounts that just do car payments. I have accounts that just do like the house stuff, so that I know this money comes in, this is the amount of money that goes out, so that I'm not homeless, and more for my family, right? Because I can live in a car. But I know my wife's and my car is paid. I know everything with the house is always going to be paid. And then there's other accounts that do other weird stuff. Not saying that's the right thing to do. Just saying that's after a while, everything that comes in to the dollar, I have everything that goes out. I check multiple times a month and see if it's up or down or left or right, and like I can go. And part of the reason why I did that was for my wife, so that when I leave, if I don't come back, she's like, where is the money? Like it's somewhere. Yeah. Go here. She still never doesn't pay attention to like where exactly it is on the computer, but she'll find it eventually.
In the computer.
Yeah.
The files are in there somewhere. I know that.
But what's funny is when I got married, right? So I was leaving Guam, we were getting married, and I was like, hey, I'm used to spending a lot more money. I know this about me. You don't have a job right now. She was going to start school as soon as we got to here. But
whoa. Let's just say she works inside the home.
Well,
yeah, I'm trying to get you to not die when you.
Like I said, she doesn't listen to this, so I have a little bit of leeway left and right. So if anybody's listening to this that talks to her, do not tell her I said that. But
she
no,
works inside the home.
We had agreed, like, hey, when you go to work or when you go to school, like everything is on me. Like, don't worry about anything. But part of that was like, all right, I want your budget. And it was hilarious when she gave me her budget, because again, please don't tell her. But I think it kind of proves a point, right? You can lie to yourself pretty easily, right? I got her budget, and it was like $100 a month for food and $100 a month for gas. And I was like, do you actually spend $100 a month on food? And she's like, well, if I tried, I could. And I was like, I don't want what you think. I want to straight up know what right now is the case, because that's the truth, right? Like, what is it right now? And then we can figure out, let's say you spend $800 a month on food. I don't know how, but it's possible. Go out every night.
Food is the biggest budget buster there is.
It's crazy, actually. But, if I do the math and you can still do that, okay, let's carry on. I couldn't, but but knowing where you're at, yeah, that's one thing that's enabled me for the most part. There's been times where I'm like the coming in and the going out is really stinking close.
Yeah.
And I've had to okay, let's figure out what am I doing that I pretend is a necessity and what is actually a necessity, and let's
exactly
make some changes. But if I didn't have that spread, and I know me too, like if I didn't have that down to the dollar, man, I'm going to spend so much more money.
How many guys do you know do that? Not a lot,
no.
Right? And that's where I think we need to have that more commonplace. And maybe, there's an organization, NSOF, I don't know, that could help me out here with getting this information to EOD techs at the mobile units, like when guys are checking in and dudes that are senior, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where I made that leadership jump, is like I was doing budgets, like this basic stuff that we're talking about with leadership. And it was like, great, I'm in a fantastic position where I know their reputations.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know the great leaders and I know the shitty ones, and those are not my words. That is their reputation, right? I'm not going to name any names, but I sat down with some good ones that are there for the men mission, the command, the community. They will make a decision based on those things, not self-promoting, self-agenda, whatever the case may be. Then you have the guys on the other side of the coin and gals that are chasing rank, chasing awards, trying to make themselves look good, generally regarded as assholes, right? So I sat down with both because they sought my services out, and I'm like, holy shit. There are I started noticing a pattern of guys and gals that were there for the men mission, the good leaders, reputations. They were consistently investing in retirement. They had an emergency fund, a legit one. They lived within their means, if not well within their means, so very little to no debt, if any. And they were not over leveraged, right? And they typically, you can walk into any mobile unit and see where all the new guys park, typically, because those are going to be the nicest cars, right? Where, you know, our CO was like driving an S10. I'm like, they don't even make those anymore. He's like, yeah, I just like, you know, it still runs, and I was like, good for you. You know, I love it, right? And at the time I was driving an 07 Kia Spectra. Granted, I had my Silverado still, and that's a whole story in of itself. But like, that's what it took, and that's what kind of a hidden, a hack, if you will, that I discovered is like, if you want to be wealthy, look poor. Yeah. Right. Yeah. If you want to be poor, look wealthy. Right. And I know there's like the whole thing about like, you have to dress for the occasion, all that kind of stuff, but largely those are occasions, right? Yeah. Not your whole life. Right. So all the time where you're not at an event or an occasion that you need to dress to impress and like be a professional, look like you're poor. Wear sweatpants. Drive a 07 Kia Spectra with 120,000 miles on it, right? But yeah, then I was like looking at the other side of the spectrum where they were chasing rank, chasing awards, and I'm like sitting down with them, I'm like, wow, let's talk about some numbers. And they were investing little to nothing in their retirement because they wanted to maximize money to pay other things, like their 3 car notes or 4 or like 2 rental properties that were vacant, stuff like that, right? Stuff that we think is sexy. It's like, okay, well, I can pay this much and I can get this car payment, and you know, I can that we're like moving this like the shell. Yeah. It's like, okay, I can pay that much, I can afford that payment, great. If I get this rental property, that'll be cool. Oh man, a lot of guys are like, I can increase my portfolio by getting this rental property. Okay, I'll be good at that. Dude, you're going to be gone 6 months out of the year for one. So just, that's an added stress, just mental stress, right? Not even talking about the finances of that. So you have that. If it goes vacant, now they had this particular instance I'm talking about had 3 rental properties that were vacant. So now wife, dual military, she was getting ready to retire. Little to no retirement savings. So they're really banking on the pension. And something that I tell everyone in the military, right? This is my blanket military statement is, when you retire from the military, your pension should be the cherry on top of your retirement plan, right? It's the cherry on top. That should not be especially EOD soft guys, because your retirement is essentially a quarter of your pay. It's not 50%, it's a quarter, because no special pays are taken into account, right? Yep. And this is just, we're not talking about disability or anything like that, or any of the nuts and bolts, like your basic retirement. That's what I'm talking about. And so we need to have a plan in place where that pension is like, boom, the cherry on top. Every month it's coming in. It's like, yes, it is just like, you're not like, shit, my pension is here and now it's already gone, you know? So that's what I'm trying to avoid. And so like this guy, right, was not an asshole. He was hurting financially. And there's a huge misconception that if I make more money, I'll be better. Right. And that could not be more false, because money does not change who you are. It magnifies it, really, honestly. Like, if I am a selfish individual who only cares about my well-being and like how I can be better and stuff like that, if I come into a large amount of money, that's going to be my concern with that money, right? That's why a lot of lottery winners are broke. Yeah. Right. For that very reason. They lose it within, a couple of years of making millions of dollars, and now it's gone. And then you have, if you are a good person, you have, goals, you live by a certain code of ethics, like you have your own core values. When you come into a lot of money, you will magnify that. You will give like ridiculously. You will pour into other things to try to change something, whatever the case may be, right? You will not, more money does not change who you are. It magnifies it. So I just like to recommend to everyone that they should live a life worth magnifying.
Yeah.
Because if you do work with me, and when, you will get a lot of more money. You're not going to be any smarter, but you're not going to be good with grammar. You're not going to be able to speak English, but you'll be able to manage the shit out of your finances.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes. And to build true wealth, meaningful wealth, it's these foundational principles that are largely overlooked that are the most important. Like really anything else in life. So yeah, it's we have to get these things into. I want to get this education into the hands and minds of our community earlier on. Like, yeah, we can hit guys that are at the tail end right now, but like basic stuff like you're talking about, like tracking your income, how much exactly is coming in and where is it going. Basic, that's a budget, right?
Yeah.
That's a zero-based budget when you track all of your expenses. When you track your income and subtract all of your expenses, and expenses are everything. Mm-hmm. Anything you spend money on, whether that is retirement contribution, savings contribution, whatever the case may be, is your money going somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's an expense. At the end of that, like in a zero-based budget, your income minus your expenses should equal zero.
Yeah.
Every single month. So you start fresh every single month. And budgets are a living, breathing document. Like, give yourself fun money, like budget that in. Now you can actually spend like whatever, me and my wife have $100 limit and that's not fun money, but that is just like, if I'm going to spend more than $100, I need to consult with her. Obviously, not for everything. We're not the government. We're not going to send here and like, we don't need
10-page document.
Yeah, we don't need a PowerPoint and like approvals and 3 quotes, whatever. But within reason, like if it's obviously like a time sensitive scenario or something like that, that doesn't mean you can justify every expenditure as a time sensitive thing. Be real, because then your wife or husband, I guess, whatever, is going to be like, no, I don't trust you with money. Right. So you have to earn that trust. And that's huge. So we have $100 limits. Like if I have to spend more than $100, I'm just going to consult my wife and vice versa. And that it's a check and balance. Like, one, that helps me because I am a nerd free spirit. I like tracking the money, but I also really like to spend money.
Yeah.
Right. I love spending money. I like getting new things, nice things, work hard for my money. I like to have nice things. Right. Yeah. So I can justify anything.
I'm the same way.
That's very easy for guys like us, right? And gals like us. However, if it's like, okay, that's $105, I'm just going to wait. Let me talk to Chris about it. And now we're going to have that. Now that takes the time of me thinking about it. So now it's no longer an impulse purchase, and I'm having a conversation. And sometimes I'm like, I don't even want to have this conversation because I know she's going to be like, that's stupid. And I'm like, okay, without her saying that. So it's a win for me, really, because now I don't have this conversation, and now my wife doesn't think I'm dumb for like that being a good idea, or me thinking that was a good idea. So there's a win, right? And also now I actually realize like, nah, I don't want that one because it's not in front of me right now. It takes the impulsivity out of if that's a word, out of our decision-making process.
Yeah.
And that's a small behavior modification that will pay freaking dividends. I'm telling you how much, like that has saved me so many times than not, and I hate to admit, it's like, yeah, sometimes you just got to trust your wife's intuition.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that goes with a lot of things, not just finance, but if you can pause on the decision, whether it's a big life change or whatever, I mean, another excellent decision that I ended up making it. But it took me years to figure out from the time that I knew I wanted to ask my wife to marry me to actually ask her. I was really verifying.
Dude, that's a big one. That's a great example.
But no, for me, oh gosh, the worst thing, and honestly, it's probably arguably easier to get in a bad spot quickly with finances, like Amazon, dude. I don't know how many people. I am a massive offender, and what I've found for me that works well actually is Amazon lists. I
The
will
lists,
dude. I'll categorize my lists and I'll put my stuff in there, and if it stays in that list for a while, eventually I can get it out of that list. Like not meaning put it in the cart and buy it, but I can realize like, oh, dude, I
put the
don't
whole list in
actually
the cart.
Yeah, but no, that makes sense, man. I haven't heard like the relating that decision to an action that potentially could have had really bad consequences, like in the job. But when you say that, I can only imagine, just like you said, I can only imagine how many times that case was played out, whether it's, EOD techs or just literally any military, any first responder, like anyone out there where you're responsible for, lives. And obviously that's like a worst case scenario, right? You have a job that you're there to either save or determine on taking lives, right? And when you've got, isn't finances like the biggest reason for divorce?
It's
Like
the number two,
second
only to infidelity. But there is financial infidelity, so that's a whole nother category.
Yeah. But like it makes perfect sense. Why you would want to, well, two things. One, why you would want to like get that under control so that is not, if it's not even in your decision making, meaning you're not worried about it because you've got that solid, and now you don't have to think about it in any other part of your life because that's already taken care of. One less stressor, which,
Think about like anything we do, like jumping out of planes, parachutes, driving, diving, computers. If you have parasitic drag or you have a program running in the background that's just taking up an enormous amount of bandwidth, or you're freaking left foot braking when you're trying to drive, it's just, you are not going to perform well.
Right.
And when we can take this money thing that is largely consuming a lot of brain calories and just a lot of time, when we just remove that, that is freedom.
Yeah.
That is freedom. And that's what I felt. And that's why I want to name my company Golden Compass Financial Freedom, because it is about that freedom. When you don't have to worry about something, like, for example, our car radiator randomly, right? It's like 3 years, 4 years old, maybe 5 years. I don't even know. I lost track of time, but it's at the point where it shouldn't have radiator issues, right? Those don't fail. So we're driving, and when I say I am driving our family vehicle, which is a minivan. Heck yeah. I talked my wife into it, for the record.
Nice.
She was dragging her feet, but it is an awesome vehicle. Anyway, it's like it was built for families. I'm driving. I'm like, why is your temperature gauge like coming on, like your warning light coming on? She's like, oh yeah, it's been doing that for a couple of days. And I was like, why have you not told me about this? So we're like on the highway. I'm like, turn the AC on, or I'm so like max, like turn the air on to like cool it down, like go off gas, and like really trying to get it down because it was like topping out.
Yeah.
So we get it to creep down, and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, the car is about to overheat. Okay, that's a problem. You cannot drive this when it's overheating, right? You have this thing called an engine, and it'll blow up, right? It's not great, right? I know that's for all you mechanical nerds out there. I know that's not exactly what would happen, but whatever. Comment on the episode if you want. So we get it down, and we bring it in, and it needs a new radiator. Like it was just like a manufacturing defect that but it would like we don't have a warranty on the vehicle.
Yeah.
So it needed to be replaced. Like I forget the actual expense. I think it was, man, I don't know. Parts and labor. It was a lot, right? It was a big unplanned expense, right? And I'm just thinking back to my childhood. I was raised by a single mom. Like, no hit on her. She did the best she could with what she had, but like that would have been freaking catastrophic, right? She would not have had the money for that. Like, the car would have been stored at the mechanic's shop, and we would have been hit with storage fees. And it would have taken for like that would have been cataclysmic in nature when I was growing up. Now that thankfully I have like everything set in place now, and I've been living like this for a long time now, and we just don't worry about money from that standpoint of like how I was. I'm not saying we're independently wealthy by any means yet, but it was a moment that I had. I was like, this is cool because we're just going to get this fixed. Ask them if they have a cash discount and probably pay less overall than my mom would have had to pay when she was stressed to the max. And like now she's paying storage fees on top of this. So now it's like, it was an interesting phenomenon that happened for me. And I was like, kind of glad that it happened. It's like, this is freedom. Now we're going to be down the car for a day. It'll be in the shop. We'll get it back. Cash, discount, boom, done. And it's over. So it's an having a plan and the means to take care of things like that, like an emergency fund and really your emergency fund is, and we can get into the nuts and bolts of it, but like, we just cash flow that expense essentially. We just, cause we have our budget. So we just tailored our spending down in certain areas to tailor maintenance up, right? Because that month it was going to need to be like that. So because we adjusted the dial in our cash flow, so our money coming in versus going out, we just adjusted that to accommodate for this. So we didn't even touch our emergency fund. Right? We didn't even touch our emergency fund. And it was just handled. I'm like, holy shit. I need to call my mom. Right? And just apologize for being a shithead when stuff like that was going on. And I'm just like, I want to do this. Blah, I can't get in my football practice. I was like, I'm sorry, Mom, because that was probably super stressful for you. And she cries all the time, whatever. So now it's just like, I can make a game out of it. Like how many times I can make her cry. But, it was, she really appreciated me acknowledging that for her. And it was good that I was able to do that, because before I would have never been able to do that. That would have been catastrophic for me too. That would have sucked. It's a whole nother ballgame when it's just, you're not worrying about money and like the stressors behind that. It consumes so much, a lot more than a lot of us want to admit or talk about. And it frees you up to do so many more things. Both just mentally, relationally, so many different things. Do you mind if we take 5?
No.
Sorry. Sorry. And we're back.
Indeed. A little bit lighter now. No, man, I, in the interim, mentioned, that you can talk about this stuff all day, and I can tell the passion for it. And like, it's cool because it's actually cool hearing the story. Like, take out the finance portion, right, of that story. That is a pretty crazy story, one, but then relating it to, and then literally seeing like how it affected you, and then was the start of some things that then put you in a position where you're like, man, I think some of the best things that some of the how do you say it? How do I say it? The things that become a passion for you, right? And then and you turn that into a business. I feel like we're both, capitalists. Like, we want to make money off of things, but when you can do it, when you're truly helping people because you at one point needed that help, and then you learned from somebody and figured out how to make that even better. Like, I think it's awesome.
Yeah. And I talked with a lot of mentors when like on the personal finance side of the house, where I was like, how can I charge people money for this when they are probably hurting really bad and they probably don't have the money? And this was a pretty affluent guy in the finance realm. He's got his own show, and it's like like I think his company does $350 million a year. So it's pretty good. And he's been around for a while. And he looked at me and he's like, just because someone needs your service does not entitle them to it. And I was like,
Yeah.
damn. Okay. And so then he's like, we talked about pricing and markets and stuff like that. He's like, if the market that you truly care about cannot pay your bills, go kill it in a market that can afford it, and then provide your service to the people you truly care about.
Yeah.
It's like, that makes a whole lot of sense, and that's freaking awesome. So that's kind of what I've shifted gears to try to do, is really kill it with a very specific market, and now provide this education and even coaching, to guys in the community and gals that are in the EOD community that need it. Because, right, well, we were talking about at the end of the day, it's like you can be the best EOD tech, right? You know what to do. You have the tools. You know how to use your tools. But if there's something outside at play that is not in the scope of training that ends it, how do we even, as a community, fix that?
Yeah.
Right? How it's like, well, that's like the instances where, and this is total speculation of, kind of the stuff that I've been thinking about and looking at. It's like, you have people that you like really look up to, and you read about their stories, and they're like, man, they were at the top of their game. Like, they were great EOD techs, yet their name is on the wall. How did that happen? And it's like an instance of shit just happens sometimes, which, yeah, is definitely true. I mean, this game that I like to, it's a tough game, EOD, and, you never know when the Grim Reaper is going to tap you on the shoulder and be like, time to get up from the table, And I would love to know, and it's just impossible metric to figure out is, unless someone out there listening can figure this out, that would be freaking awesome. How, like, were those avoidable?
Right.
Was there something going on in their personal lives that if they were just like, have had some extra coaching or some education in that aspect of their lives, maybe they would have been 100% focused at the task at hand? Because, like me, I mean, I and this is like, I don't want to toot my own horn, I feel weird for saying this, but I did have a good reputation up to that point. And I think I still had a good reputation after the fact. But it was like, I did have a good reputation of being a good EOD tech, and that was basic stuff that I missed. Like, basic. I would be pissed if I was running a drill and someone did what I did, Like, what are you doing? Like, just go away and come back when you actually want to train, type deal. And yet that's what I did. And so now it's like, okay, if this is, and this, like, the capitalist part of me is like, okay, starting a company, I'm trying to fix something, right? There's a need that I see as underserved, which is honestly not being served at all in our community. And this is education, this basic personal finance stuff. It's like, we try to get everyone so many things except this. And even when I was at the training unit, right, I sent up, like, I was like, okay, I didn't have my own program. I had been certified as a personal finance coach at that point, but I didn't have like a curriculum that I could give to the guys and gals at the command. So, like, why don't we just purchase like this basic financial education course? It's like this much money per person. I got a quote. I sent it up. Like, I tried to do the whole supply shit kind of procurement route.
Yeah.
And it got shot down essentially at group because it was not a training requirement.
Right.
So they're like, no. I was like, great. Oh. And so I was like, cool, I'll just go to the Chief's mess and I'll put this out. And let's buy X amount of spots for E6 and below at the command. And then if E7 and up wants to go, they just pay X amount for their spot, whatever. So we can and these are the people that we claim that we really care about. So let's get them some education that could really end this, right? Change their lives forever. And it essentially got shut down because there was we wanted to repaint a freaking Connex box near the ocean that was rusty. It's no shit, it's rusty. It's near the ocean. Also, that's not what we need to spend our money on because there's other pots of money that can pay for that, right? Yeah. So I was whatever. And that's where I was dude, we are supposed to care about these people, yet we're not giving them what they need, right? Yeah. They will be better at work. You want to maximize performance out of someone, fix their personal life. Yeah. Help them with their personal life, and they will show up to work because they want to work. They're not using it as an escape. They're not going to be there for 8 hours after the workday ends because they don't want to go home. And that's all they're thinking about all day is fuck, I don't want to go back home, right? We know plenty of guys like that. Mm-hmm. Hell, I was that type for a little bit. We all go through different chapters. I'm not casting, shade at anyone. But fix your shit first so you can show up to do what you actually want to do. Yeah. And that will eliminate the freaking welfare mentality and state that we have about well, I would get out, but I have a steady paycheck the 1st and the 15th. Yeah. So I'm going to stick around and do that. I was dude, that is the wrong answer. But I say that caveat, do what you got to do for your family. Obviously, that is the most important thing. However, I want, and it's my wish for all my brothers and sisters out there in this community, and really in the country and world for that matter, that you are showing up to do a job because you feel a purpose-driven need to be there. Yeah. And the pay is a symptom of that purpose. And that's what I want. I want to change the dial so it's not just I'm showing up for a paycheck and I kind of feel fulfilled after I get the paycheck. Yeah. That's backwards in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. It actually, I don't know why I thought of this now as opposed to a while ago when you actually said something on this. You talked about, looking at cars, right? I remember when I worked at In-N-Out.
Nice.
I loved it, by the way.
Shout out. Double. Yeah. What do you get? Animal style?
Oh, dude.
Secret menu? Let's talk about In-N-Out for a second. Sorry to cut you.
So here's what I would do. Yes. Right? So if I went there and I got my own, I'd get a 3x3 animal style. So,
a 3x3?
So yeah, you can get, there's one dude that would come in, him and his buddy, and it was funny because one of them was portly, shall we say, and the other one was looked like he should not be eating In-N-Out, in the terms of looked jacked, right? Looked like all he ate was chicken and rice, and maybe souls. A little, yeah, exactly. They would come in and one dude would get a 20x20 and one dude would get a 10x10, and the chubby dude would get the 10x10. And the big dude, I don't know if it was his way of just being I will always be better than you or what, but he would get the 20x20, and they would come in once a month or so and do that.
And a 20x20 is 20
meat, 20 cheese.
Holy literally shit.
So in the brown boxes that you get, you basically make the bottom bun, you put that in the bottom of the box, and then you just start stacking the meat and cheese, and then at the top of the box, it fits perfect actually. You throw the top bun on.
Oh my God.
It's ridiculous.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was the thing.
Yeah. Dang. There's all kinds of cool stuff. There's the stuff that, you can get, and then there's the stuff that you can get because you work there.
You should know.
Yeah. One of my favorite, this is going to sound disgusting, but I swear it's super good, is just a regular double with onions. So when somebody ordered something and then decided they didn't want that, or we made it wrong, whatever, just a regular double with onions. I take that and you do a burger count. So the way you track it is you say, hey, one burger, and then you track the amount of cheese and the amount of patties, right? And then that at the end, right, talk about spreadsheets. There's like a legit like spreadsheet at the end of the day.
You're telling me there's even a list to make a hamburger.
Yes. And that's why they're doing so well. But so normally you just throw it in this bucket, right? And then at the end of your shift, the manager's like, hey, you peon, go count all those. And then you write it out, and then he takes it and puts it in the spreadsheet, and everything's like, you account for all of your meat and cheese. That's what they used to order. Less. But what you can do, or what I did, was just the regular double with onions, throw that on the backboard. So the grill station that's not being used. And later, like when it cools off, I don't know what it is. It doesn't work when I like take it home. It always tastes like not as good when I take it home. But when I leave it on the back and it cools down, I fill in the little sheet myself, right? Like 2 cheese, 2 meat, 1 bun. Cool. Move that. Go back an hour later when I actually have time, and I'll eat that. And I don't know what it is, dude, but it's so good. It's so good. It doesn't make sense, but it's so good.
I'm going to order that the next time I go to In-N-Out. I'm going to be like, how long does it have to sit? Like a half hour on the back burner?
Just until it's like, until
like
it's
the end
cold.
of your shift.
Yeah. Like until it's cold. You know, I mean, it's not like 4 or 5 hours, you know, but really, because you'd leave it back there, and there'd be 3 or 4 back there, you know, different people saving stuff, right? And so if you got 4 minutes or 1 minute, you know, it depends on how hungry you were, you'd leave your station because nobody's there, right? And you'd run over and you just chow it down, and then you'd wash your hands. And everybody did actually wash their hands. We would get yelled at if we like even thought. Dude, there's so many times where I washed my hands like 3 or 4 times because somebody was like, "You didn't wash your hands." I'm like, "I swear I did." But
got you ready for COVID,
right?
Perfect. You had the training,
like 15 years early. But no, like
So sorry, we were talking about cars.
Oh, yeah,
and
that's right.
In-N-Out. My bad.
So, In-N-Out, you actually make pretty good money, and managers make really good money. They actually at one point, I went on air put out the caps, and they've probably changed now, but it was a lot of money that they capped it because managers were making so much money that they were like, managers can't make this much money. It's weird, but so managers of stores that are doing even semi well, they're doing all right. And there was one manager at a store maybe 100 miles from us, and I was talking to my manager, and he was like, "Yep, this dude, he had come by, just this trashy, like old Honda Civic, did not look like, if you saw him, you would be like, that dude's poor." He is, in fact, not poor at all. But the exact same thing that you said, right? That asked him, like, why? Because his wife drives like a Range Rover or whatever. And like, dude, why don't you have a nice car? And he's like, because I don't care. Like, I just don't care. I don't care about cars. Like, I'm not into it. If I were to have a nice car, it would only be so that you're like, oh, you have a nice car. And that's where, like, I think on that, you know, it's like, I like having my truck. I like it nice. And actually, the longer I have it, the more I realize I could probably cut down a couple steps. Like, because I was actually looking yesterday, and there's on my truck, there's lights on each side of the mirror, right? You can press a button, and it'll turn a light on the mirror. And I was like, I've never used that except for the one time when I was like, what's this button do? And there's a few things on my truck that I'm like, I could have probably saved like at least $5,000 by not getting an option that I'm like, I just don't use, right?
Yeah.
But I like driving around in a nice vehicle. Cool. At this point, I can afford it. But when I couldn't, I was driving a Saturn Vue. Like, and
Nice.
You know what?
That's a beater right there.
It was. Yeah, I had that in EOD school, and on the weekends, I would take that thing because it was all-wheel drive. Not good all-wheel drive, but it was all-wheel drive. And I would go flying through the back, like, trails.
Heck yeah.
Definitely not allowed to do that. And now you can't. Like, it's all blocked off and everything.
It's like Range Road. There's UXO and stuff.
Yep. Straight up, dude. I would go flying through there.
I'm going to get some extra problem sets so I can get better.
Exactly.
Way to go, man. Way to go.
But, you know, I lived in my means. I don't think there's anything wrong with, like, having a nice vehicle if you want that and you can afford it. But, like, definitely
Absolutely.
having a nice vehicle so other people can say you have a nice vehicle is not the reason to have it, you know?
Yeah, it's
like,
backwards.
Yeah.
It's backwards. I'm all about having nice shit. Dude, love nice stuff. Like, I mean, I had that beater, 07 Kia Spectra, but like you should not be defined by your things.
Right.
You should have nice things because they're in line with your values.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, sure. I mean, I'm the dude that talks about beaters all the time. Yeah. I mean, I do have a nice car now that I paid for in cash, right? And people are like, oh, why do you pay for cars in cash and all this other stuff? I'm like, dude, because it keeps my priorities in check, right? Sure. If you have to ask yourself, can I afford this payment? Versus, right? It's a simple it's a simple test, right? That we could use as a metric for anything that we buy, right? Especially if it's big ticket. If I'm asking myself, can I afford the payments versus how much does this cost? That is a good indicator that you cannot afford something.
Right.
Right. If I'm asking how much it costs, okay, cool. Because I want to spend a certain amount of money on it. That is the right mindset to be in. I'm like, well, I can afford these payments because, I mean, my truck, right, the Silverado, I don't have it anymore. It's a big part of my story. I had to sell it. I mean, it was time. But I bought it in 09. It was a 2010. So, woo, right, brand spanking new, had 3 miles. I was an E3 at the time, getting ready to graduate EOD school. So I was like, I'm going to get this bonus coming in here pretty soon. So I'm spending my money before I even have it. The car is, the truck is $10,000 more than I made in a year at that point in time in my life. I'm like, this is stupid on steroids. I mean, now I think that, in the time I was like, yeah, I can do this. I can, if I just don't do anything else in my life, I can afford this mortgage payment of a car. Perfect. Exactly. Let's do it. And then I, of course, was trying to off-road with it all stock, got it stuck. Had to borrow had to go to the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society to get a quick loan to pay for my car payment because I had to pay a $300 towing thing to get me unstuck next to a train track. And this is in Gulfport, Mississippi during ECS, right? I'm just like doing stupid stuff. And so I missed my car payment because I didn't have enough money because I had to get towed. So then I go to Navy Marine Corps Relief Society. And all of these should have been like red flags, but they're almost like, this is just how life is, right?
Yeah, right.
This is what normal is. And I didn't really, I mean, again, my mom did the best she could with what she had, but I didn't really have a good, like, this is how you win with money early on in life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was trying to figure this shit out. And very poorly. I learned a lot. I learned better by doing things really poorly a bunch of times than, you know what I mean? And so I, like, dude, it's so stupid. But, like, I then went, like, I eventually paid the truck off, and I just kept it because it was my truck, it was my truck. I had to keep it. But then I had this, like, Kia Spectra, 07, dude, beater, like, dude, the hubcaps are gone. I spray painted the rims black because they were starting to rust. So I got like some Rust-Oleum, and like, yeah, I was looking legit beater, like beater status. The radio stopped working because there was water intrusion in the dashboard. So I just had a Bluetooth speaker in there for my radio.
That's awesome.
And then again, this water intrusion, I open my door one day and I get in and I'm like, what? My feet are in like 5 inches of water. Like, what is happening right now? And so I like check all the seals. Like, nothing else is wet in the vehicle. I was like, did I leave my window open? Like, what's going on? The seats were dry. Everything else was dry. I'm like, this makes no sense. I vacuumed all the water out. And I'm like, okay, cool, right? Everything's dry now. I started driving. And I went to a stop sign, and as I stopped, a bunch of water just started. I was like, what's happening? Like, I lifted up my shoes. I was like, what's happening? And I think the light, I think one of the headlights was leaking water and just had a bunch, like, so, and for a while, I've been noticing when I turn, it sounds like water slosh. I was like, that's really weird. Maybe the windshield wiper fluid's like active. I don't know, dude. It's a beater. I don't care. So I just like ignored it. Didn't pay the attention that it needed. But yeah, I think one of the headlights was leaking water. So I eventually just cut all the carpet from the driver's side, like front and rear, out. So literally there was no carpet in half the vehicle.
That's awesome.
Like straight beater, like metal. Like I'm standing up, like it was straight beater, but I love that car. Especially when I had to drive to Suffolk like every month. But yeah, it's like the perception of, I want a nice car because it's like this is the trap that we have to get out of, right? We have to get out of this trap where it's, I want this car. It costs this much money. I can't afford that. I'm going to afford the payment, so I'm going to borrow the money, right? So now I'm going to use money I don't have to buy this car to impress people that I don't even know, that don't even care, right? The only person that cares that I have a nice car is me. When someone pulls up to me, I'm like, yeah, they're looking at my car. Hell yeah. They're not looking at your car. They're texting or like doing their makeup or like reading a book. Like people are doing anything except for looking at your car and or driving. So it's such a weird thing. And now it's like, now talk about the freedom and the mentality side of the house where now I have my nice car, right? Versus a beater. Like let's say a car that is $5,000, $2,500 to $5,000 that I pay for in cash. That is a beater, right? It gets from point A to point B. It's relatively safe and whatever. If in this scenario, right, let's just go to a grocery store, any grocery store, you pick it, right? Someone opens their car door into your car. That is going to ruin your freaking day if you have a nice car, right? With my beater, that happened all the time, like all the time. Actually, I thought it would happen a lot, but it just really didn't, except for if it was me, like hitting other people's cars. So that's a thing. Or like the grocery store, like the cart return. Yeah. I would always leave a note like on someone's car if I did that, but not saying that I did it a lot, but when in my truck, right, if that happened, that would have ruined my freaking day. I'm like, who the fuck did this? Yeah. Get the camera, get the security cameras, and like talk to the manager. And like, dude, there's nothing we can do for you. In my car, it's like, it never happened because I didn't care, right? And if it did, like, it just like, it doesn't ruin your day.
Right.
So now, instead of the rest of your day being consumed with this, and now it's like, that's something you're worried about, that's going to come out at work, that's going to come out at home, because like now you've just been stressed about this one singular incident that's totally out of your control, just because someone hit your car, right? And it's just, dude, I can't even tell you the mental freedom of having a beater like in that situation is, I mean, now, yes, I do have a nicer car, BMW X6. It's legit. I figured, if I'm just going to be getting groceries for the rest of my life, I want to do it and have fun.
Agreed.
So I did that. But that car was, I mean, honestly, it's a used one. I didn't get it brand new. And it is it was $10,000 less than I bought my truck for.
Really?
Yeah. So, and I cash, done, boom. So now I just have this car that I can just have fun in. It's nice. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. But it's like, it's an appropriate, it's in line with my values because it doesn't define who I am.
Right.
It's fun. I like to drive, and I've been to a few driving schools and everything like that. So I can really appreciate some of the features in it. And it's not going to kill me if something bad happens to it, right? Yeah. I know we all have our babies and our I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but don't let it define who you are,
right.
And it has to be percentage-wise in line with how much you make, right? Mm-hmm. It would be totally out of the question for me to get a brand new 2023 Beamer SUV right now. Those are like $100,000+, right? Yeah. This is well within, and a guideline that I use, I'll just tell everyone, is the total amount for anything with wheels and motors, right, that you own as a family should not be more than 50% of your income. Yeah. Right? Combined. So that, because it's a depreciating asset. There's too much money tied up into a depreciating asset. Granted, during COVID, we saw used cars prices go through the roof. Like, we actually sold one of our cars for $100 more than we bought it, like 4 years prior to that. I was like, this is friggin' awesome. So yeah, there was that time, but that's obviously not the standard. Yeah. So yeah, if you have more than 50% of your money tied up in vehicles, and that's anything with with wheels and motors for all of you out there, because I know we have a lot of toys that count as vehicles: motorcycles, dirt bikes, quads, side-by-sides. When we're talking to a community that likes to have fun and do dangerous shit, stupidly, like me, and that's never going to change. Yeah. But we just got to keep that in perspective, right? 50% of what you make should not annually, right, should not be in cars and vehicles. Yeah. That's just a losing equation, right? And that's pro tip for free right there. Easy. Yeah.
Take that to the bank.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to, because...
You're welcome.
Yeah, so there's a couple other things that you had mentioned, and I think a lot of it. I think one of them kind of ties into a kind of a quote or a thought that you had was it's not about yesterday. Mm-hmm. Does that kind of tie into this, or where did that kind of thought or statement
Yeah, that was actually so technically not my first team leader, because I had my team leader during training and everything like that, but then I shifted platoons, some body bingo was happening, and then my team leader that I deployed with, my second team leader, first deployed team leader that I had, would say that all the time. And I'll just give him a shout out because he's an awesome dude, Ross Farrow. And
love Ross.
Yeah, Ross Hole is what we used to call him. But yeah, dude, love that guy. He taught me a lot EOD wise, but like he would always say that. And at the time I'm like, dude, yeah, okay, dude, I get it. Like, it's not about what you did today, type stuff. But it really resonated with me. And because whether it's like lifting weights or managing your money or working on a project or whatever the case may be, like moving the chains to a goal that you want, it's like we can always talk about like, oh yeah, my PR was like blah blah blah, and I used to do this and blah blah, and like it's like close the yearbook, dude. Okay, like move on. It puts it in perspective about like what are you actually doing today, or what have you done today, and when the day ends, can you look yourself in the mirror? It's like, did you maximize your time and energy and effort to what you want to do today?
Yeah.
And only you can answer that question. Like, you're the only one that knows you. And it's like, if you went on a run and like you're trying to do a PR or like get a new run time for whatever distance, like, did you actually, you're the only one that knows if you push yourself the most that you could push yourself, right? Did you actually exert yourself? Did you have that conversation with your spouse as openly as you possibly could without pushing your own opinion, right? Did you do that? Was it all about you? Did you open the door for like that engagement activity to further your relationship, or are you just like putting up the barrier, right? We are the only people that can answer those questions for ourselves. And I think Ross really hit the nail on the head with this quote about it's not about what you did yesterday, it's about what you did today. Because you could have, and this goes for, it works both ways from a positive standpoint and a negative standpoint, right? If you have a shit day, great. It's not about what you did yesterday. It's about what you're doing today. Like, you can dwell on that and have another shit day, and that'll turn into a shit week, month, year, and then you're like, where the frick did the last half decade go?
Right.
Or you can turn around and be like, okay, yeah, that was shitty, but now today is a new day, and this is what I'm gonna do today to fix it, to get better, right? I'm gonna learn from that, and these are the things I'm actually gonna do to get better, right? And I see this so much on social media. It's like, oh, look at, I'm reading these books this year, and like this, I'm reading this book, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, why don't you just read one book and actually apply the tenets of that book, if it's really that meaningful, to your life, and then read another book after you've actually applied these lessons, instead of just like, oh yeah, I'm reading 15 books. It's like, it's impossible to implement the knowledge of 50 books or 15 even into your life over the course of a year, right?
Yeah.
It's freaking impossible. Sure, if you like reading, I'm not knocking that, but like, it's not about what you did yesterday, right? Oh, I read 12 books. Great. Today, did you implement any of those lessons in your life? Man, because it was always like, if I beat him on a workout, that's where he really first started saying it.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, yesterday, yeah, I smoked you. He's like, yeah, what'd you do today? I was like, whatever. Rest day, ice cream sundae. Yeah, I saw you in the defect eating that pecan pralines or whatever, pralines and cream. Oh, dude, so good. Best deployment ice cream ever.
Nice.
But yeah, that meant a lot to me back then, and I really do try to emulate it now, especially with coaching and talking about money. And I hear a lot of guys like to kind of like tell me everything that they've done. It's like, well, I've done this, and I'm trying to do this and get better at that. It's like, that's great. What'd you do today to manage your money? Did you track all your expenses? Well, I'll do that at the end of the week. It's like, no, dude. If you want to really win, you have to modify your behavior in such a way that it feels weird, right?
Yeah.
It feels unnormal. It feels abnormal, because normal sucks. Normal is being buried in debt for the rest of your life and working to pay your bills. That's normal, right? I want you to live a life where you are doing the things you want to do because you want to do them, and you have an emergency fund in place where you can blow off work and you can get fired for 6-12 months and not worry about income like at all. And you can then get the next job that you want to do because you can do it, right? And that all starts with tracking all your money, right? Every single day. When you spend money, when you get gas, open your budget, put it in there. Spent this much, right? And we can clean up your situation. You know, you're doing a great thing, but it is very busy.
Yeah.
The budget essentially will take place of all the accounts, right?
Yeah.
And this is free, unsolicited advice. So, you know, it probably is worth as much as you're spending on it. Just your time here with me. We can do that. It's great. You know, you have all the framework you need. You can take that framework and just put it on a piece of paper or whatever app you want and have a budget for all those things and have a family operating expense, a fund money, like family fund money, whatever, like different sinking funds, but really your operating fund will feed all those things, and it'll just take a lot of accounts off the table and like less things to get hacked, and that's a little bit increased security for you and kind of thing. So it's like there are ways to tighten the screws even when you're doing the right thing, which you are, you know, and that's the point of like there's always ways to improve. Even me, I'm all like I have a coach because I believe in it, right? I need that outsider's perspective. Like, hey, am I doing this right? You know, that's what I had in EOD. And it's hard when we get out, right? We don't have that anymore unless you seek it out.
Yeah.
You know, so that's like been a huge learning point for me is like, I love being on a team. I like being independent and like doing my own thing, but I like the accountability of a team.
Yeah. I think, you know, said you have a coach. I think that's something that sometimes people get misconstrued as like they think, oh well, if that dude has a coach, he's not all together. Like no. The reason why you have a coach is because that's someone that has an outside perspective at you. You may know all the things, and a lot of times, like professional athletes. I was not a professional athlete, but like.
Really?
I know, right? Like that's why I'm here. But on my way to at one time thinking maybe I want to go that route, right? Running was my thing back in the day. It was yesterday. It is not today.
Yeah.
But you know, there are runners that can do it all themselves, but having that outside person that is keeping you accountable for all the things you already know and looking into you, like I think it makes sense for everybody to have that, to have somebody that can come in and look over the shoulder and be like, hey, and sometimes it's just everything's good, thumbs up, continue on your course. And maybe a month goes by or a year goes by and they're like, hey, I've noticed over the last X, Y, and Z, you know, these things have kind of deviated from what you say is your priority, just like you're talking about. Yeah. Whereas, you know, sometimes it's hard to see that in ourselves. So like, I think that's valuable. That's super valuable.
It's incredibly valuable, both from a personal growth standpoint and also financially, like in the topic of what I do, right, is my clients typically see a $16,000 financial turnaround in the first 6 months of coaching, right? So that means that's a combination of money saved, debt paid off, right? So their monthly cash flow will increase, and this income level is roughly $100,000 to $150,000 per year. So that equates to around a 25% increase in cash flow in the first 6 months. That's huge, right? I looked at my own numbers like, holy shit. Like, I want that for myself. Granted, I am doing the things that I coach. I would never tell someone to do something that, you know, this is an EOD way of life. It's like, do not ever tell someone to do something that you are not comfortable doing, right? Or that you wouldn't do. So I applied that aspect of my EOD background to this coaching practice. And it's like, man, I want someone as an accountability partner, right? And my wife is a great one, but it is nice having an outside in, because sometimes she gets really busy with her daily stuff, and I get busy with my stuff. It's nice to have that outside perspective for both of us to now, hey, you guys are doing great. However, we've noticed like in these areas, like it's getting a little laxed over here. We need to tighten it back up. And that one instance of feedback, honest feedback, really saves us money. a lot of money. And same for a lot of other people, right? My bad. Oops. I'm such a noob.
I'll edit that out.
But yeah, it's tremendously important. It's like, yeah, it's an upfront expense, but it is saving. It is, it's a fraction. The cost for coaching is really depending on what you're doing, right? It is the payout, the cost associated with it should be a fraction of the payout.
Yeah.
Like whatever you're doing, whether you're getting coaching for sport. I mean, think about NFL, right? It's professional athletes in the NFL. How many coaches are on a team?
Yeah.
Like an exorbitant amount.
Yep.
Like, why are there so many coaches? Because every single position needs a coach, and some people just have individual coaches. It's huge because of that accountability. They want to be performing the best. They're squeezing every drop of performance, and really, they're squeezing, but they're really eliminating inefficiencies away from what they're doing, the things that they're doing, whether that's, NFL, professional shooting, right? I'm an amateur competition shooter now, which is also really fun. That's how I kind of like do the fun things I used to do. But that is like, just really competition shooting is way different than combat shooting, just from a mindset standpoint and just like what you're trying to do, right? I'm trying to put as many rounds in that piece of paper as close together as humanly possible, right? I don't care about someone else shooting at me.
Yeah.
That's my goal, right? So it's a totally different ball game. And really to do that is, it's a lot of weapons control, a lot of weapons handling, grip, and all that. But it's also eliminating a lot of the inefficiencies out of your weapon and your body and everything else. And in the military, we couldn't really do that. We can't just hook up our guns however we want to hook them up, right? That's what you got. So have fun, enjoy it. So now we're adaptable, which is a great adaptability exercise. Like, cool, this is my life, and I have to be really good at shooting this gun, right? Now I can just hook it up and really eliminate a lot of inefficiencies. Like if it's got a lot of recoil, I can put a compensator on it. I can port my barrel. I can port my slide. I can reduce weight and all the other things, right? But now I can still like fall back on my training, and all the add-on stuff never trumps training.
Yeah.
Right. And putting the hours in and putting the reps in, and for your money, for your relationships, everything is the same. Where if you're not putting in the time and energy to be good at that thing, like I love how you say like there's a common misconception with people that have coaches, like, oh, they got a coach, like they're all fucked up. It's probably the opposite of that, actually, which is it's weird. Like, couples that are in counseling are probably doing better than couples that are not in counseling.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll be totally transparent with you and the audience, because, it's our community. It's like me and my wife, we go through some bad shit, right? Like any other marriage. Marriages work. And we talk about it in counseling, right? Yeah, we like to hash it out. But going to counseling really helps us calibrate how we can argue.
Yeah.
Because arguing is going to happen. There's no way to have, like, I don't want to argue with my wife anymore. It's like, that's an unrealistic expectation, or husband, right? And when you know how to have a fight, that's the best way to go, right? Because now it's like, you can understand them. It helps with having that conversation in a constructive way instead of just blowing up and having like World War III, and now we're just like pissed off for the next week at each other. It's like, I don't even like you. I don't like looking at you anymore. Get out of my face. But yeah, that really helps out, right? In marriages. And so it's like, I highly recommend, like, just go talk to someone. Obviously, don't talk to a freaking nutcase that's going to like, oh, I think you should get divorced right away. It's like, no, right? That's a whole nother topic that I like to talk about, but I won't get into it because it's a long one.
Yeah.
Back to the money side of the house, though, and what we're trying to do is eliminate these inefficiencies. And I'm going to go dark for a little bit, because we talked about the active duty guys and like being in the situation that I was in, and me being lucky and how many people weren't. That's something that we really can't do anything about. The ones that are like all the cases that have happened, we can prevent it by hopefully eliminating those instances when it's due to personal finances, which is a lot, right? That's the number 2 cause of divorce, and it affects every aspect of your life. I'm not saying it's the end all be all. It's a huge component, though. However, I want to touch on the veteran aspect of it. As a veteran myself now, I want to know, like in this veteran suicide thing is like getting ridiculous. It's like, okay, is it 22? Is it 44? Is it less? Like who are we actually tracking? Like can we actually track this metric better? That's one thing. But now I want to know, as a veteran, you're dealing with X, Y, Z, you know, from your time in service and your family life and whatever else, all the other pieces that you have going on now, right? So if we're still not worried about our personal finances and we're just like kind of surviving with that on that side of the house, which is as I was transitioning out, I went through the Honor Foundation. Good shameless plug for them right now. It was a great course. However, in my cohort of around 30 people, we were asked what our top 5 concerns were in transition. And aside from me, everyone else in the course, right? Everyone else in my cohort, the top 3 were financially related.
Yeah.
I want to make enough money. I want to provide for my family. I want to have enough to, you know, I want to find a job that can support my lifestyle, like stuff like that, like financially charged in nature, right? The top 3 out of 5 for everyone in the cohort. And I can't imagine that we were unique in that regard. I'm sure every cohort is very similar. So I started looking at that. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, there's definitely correlation, especially I already had my company at that time. So I'm like obviously doing market research. And then I started like really getting into this veteran suicide thing because it's all over the place. And it's like, okay, man, this is happening. Like I know buddies that have, you know, decided to end it and lost their battle with their demons. And I'm like, how many times has this happened where, and this is another, like, I don't know how we're going to track this metric. If someone out there has a resource, that'd be fantastic. How many times has a veteran been just dealing with their demons, right? They're trying to figure their shit out and they just aren't managing their money. They don't know what's coming, where's it going. They have enough money. They're making enough money, right? Money's not an issue as far as income is concerned. But since it's not being tracked, let's say the lights go out. It's nothing crazy. It's not like a catastrophic event, like a foreclosure, repossession, something big like that. It's like the lights get turned off or, you know, the water gets cut off or something like that where it was otherwise avoidable just by paying the bill, right? That happens. And now everything else in their life, that is the last justification they need to just end it.
Yeah.
Something very avoidable. And I'm just like, how often is this going on? Of the 22 a day, like what is actually happening? And it's crazy, right? I did a rough extrapolation of my theory to the American public of, you know, the population and how many people that are actually tracked essentially commit suicide because of some finance related thing. And it was a staggering amount. I mean, it was in the millions, right, of the total population. And I'm like, okay, if we extrapolate that down to the 22, like the percentages, it is absurd. Like, I don't know if that's correct data, so I don't want to put up the numbers.
Yeah.
Because that was just like kind of my like little project based off of extrapolation of data. And it was very concerning though what my findings were because it was way higher than I thought it was.
Yeah.
And again, what are we doing to help veterans, right? In my transition class, love THF. They're all like, they helped me so much in my transition, but there's nothing personal finance in there, right? Nothing. And I talked to some people, and this is not a hit on THF, the Honor Foundation, or their view. I was just talking to other people that were not associated with the Honor Foundation, and they were under the assumptions like, well, if you think about it, like, why would that be in a transition program? Because these people are already at the end of their career, so like it's too late for them. I'm like, that is a loser's mentality.
Yeah.
Like that is a huge loser's mentality, and it's never too late.
Right.
Like it's never too late. If you are stressed about your transition, and this is another thing where it kind of ties in that veteran suicide because now we have all these people getting out. If you're not SOF, you have TAP, right? That's the military across the board transition, whatever. I forget what it
Transition assistance program.
Yeah, right. And it is abysmal, right? It's terrible. There's no real, like, they just throw a lot of stuff at you because like they have like, this is what you should need in transition. Let's throw it at you. This is how you build a resume. That's 30 pages. No one wants a 30-page resume. It's like in THF, they're like, yeah, that has to be 1 page. So sorry. And so like, that's the kind of stuff that's going on. It's like, dude, what So I'm trying to get this info out. So now it's like, how do we get this info, this education to transitioning service members where they feel like they can at least get a plan? Because now if they have no plan and they're getting out, they're already behind the power curve. So now people are transitioning out of a job that they really did love at one point in time, and now they're getting out for whatever reason. Not that they hate it, but it's just their time is over and they want to do something else. I've talked to people. The main reason why I got out, right? I can't talk for everyone, is because I had a priority shift, right? I wanted to spend more time with my family. I wanted to do my definition of freedom is doing the things I love with the people I love when I want to do it. Obviously, within the constraints of the law. So I could not justify still staying in because it was violating those priorities, right? And that's just my scenario. I'm not saying that's the right scenario, because I had a lot of people volunteer their opinion of me getting out as I was getting out. It's like, you really find out who your friends are when you're like, hey, I want to get out. And they're like, okay, cool. You actually never liked me. Sweet. You don't have a okay, cool. So you really you find out who your friends are. And it's like, people that really try to help you because it's your decision in your life. Well, that's who I found were the most valuable resources. Yeah. The people that are immediately people that I don't even know, right? I'm just having a conversation with someone, and then another service member hears it and they're like, you're getting out at 13? What are you, stupid? I'm like, who are you? What? And so anyway, but trying to get this information so you can make an informed decision, not have to worry about it. So now people are exiting the military and they don't have a plan, and now they need a job, right? Now they're searching for a job for the wrong reasons, right? Because now I need to provide for my family, which is a right reason, but that should be, you're providing for your family should be the symptom of you doing what you want to do, what you feel inclined to do. There's a problem, this company solves it. I want to be part of that mission, right? I want to sign up for that, or I want to start my own company and solve this problem. So now people are taking jobs that they don't want in a transition, which is already hard enough, and now they're hating life because they're essentially doing the same thing they were while they were in, without the team that they had and the people that they knew and the community that they lived in forever. Now it's all new. They're the new kid on the block trying to figure it out. There's an expectation of oh, this guy's a veteran or this gal's a veteran, so they should be super high performing or whatever. But it's they're human at the end of the day, and they need to learn it like everyone else. And, as a veteran, to the veterans out there, no one owes us anything. Right. So it's we have to earn our way, just how we earned our way up in the military. And what I want to eliminate is that from happening, right? I want you to get out of the military for whatever reason or if you, when you want to get out. I'm not saying everyone leave the military. When it's your time to transition, it should be right for you, because all your ducks in a row and you now have something that you want to pursue, and you can go pursue it. Because if I get out the wrong time and I don't have the finance to support that, I'm going to take this job because let's see, I'm going to be stopping. My pay is going to stop on this month. So I need to start pay right then. Right. And now I have no time, right? No time. At least give yourself a 6-month buffer so you can figure out what you want to do and then pursue that. And for the general population, Gen Pop, I found that this situation was having catastrophic effect during COVID. Very sad events were happening, right, where people were losing their jobs, getting laid off, whatever, they couldn't provide for families. So now they didn't have that emergency fund in place, so now they're taking jobs that they needed to fulfill because they had to provide for their family. So now, since instead of just okay, cool, that job didn't work out because of whatever reason, I have time to search for the next thing and it be the right fit. We have a conversation. I get brought on board like that. They like me for who I am and what I can provide to the team and the value that I add. Not I'm filling a position, I'm a number, and go to work, right? Be productive. I saw that too often where the latter was happening, right? Just find a job, go be productive, make money, provide for your family because they still got to eat. Now, their relative was placed on a vent, didn't have a great outlook, and it was probably their last opportunity to go visit this person. So now they just started this new job that they really didn't want, and their company really doesn't care about them. Yeah. And they have this family event that's going on. It's I need to go and visit this family. I don't have the money to do that, so I'm going to reach to a credit card or a personal loan to get money so I can go make that trip and be out of work, or I'm going to lose my job because now they're like, you don't have any PTO saved up because it doesn't invest at this shitty job until like, whatever, 4 or 5 months, and whatever the case may be. And, or you only have like 4 days, right? When it's like, you're going to eat a day and a half, just travel. And so now you have like that, sure, like cherish that moment. But now that is like really limiting what you truly value, especially if that is someone you care about, you want to get there to be with them. Yeah. And a lot of people were not able to do that. And that really breaks my heart, because if we just build these foundations that are legit and solid, people will have the luxury of time, right?
Yeah.
Because we can't buy time. Like, I don't care who you are, unless Elon, you're listening to this, dude. I've been telling you for months to like figure out a way that we can buy time. In an event, he'll get on it eventually. Hopefully, we can't write a check for 5 more minutes, right? And how often? I mean, I know I've done this a lot, especially with like mentors that have died, right? It's like I would give anything for one more conversation, one more handshake, one more hug, one more, if it's a loved one, it's like one more, just anything.
Yeah.
And you can't write a check for that. You can't. No matter how much money you make, at the end of the day, when the Grim Reaper taps you on the shoulder, the game's over, right? You got to stand up and see you later, right? There's no like, hey, but just go, right? So we can buy ourselves time by giving ourselves these foundational securities safety nets. Not securities, right? I'm not a financial advisor. I can't do that. I have to say that legally. But once we give ourselves those buffers, we can take time and not worry about really the repercussions, because we just don't need it, right? Yeah. If you don't like this, great. I'm going to take 6 months off and go find another job that actually fits me, because this is like, I mean, obviously that's not the first conversation you're going to have with these people, but if it comes down to that, you have the leverage now to say, okay, maybe this is not right for me. Thanks, but no thanks. Because this is important for me, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask them for like 2 weeks, whatever. Anyway, so managing your money just impacts your life in so many ways. It touches every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
Right. And when we do it well, we really provide a sense of freedom for ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Nah, I like it, man. And it really does. I agree. It touches everything. And I like that the key is not, and I don't think it ever should be, even though some people say it is. The key is not making more and more and more. The key is working what you do have and giving you, like you say, and like your company says, the freedom to be able to do the things you want, right? And if at the point that, well, I'll go to me in the military. Every time I've come up for a portion, an enlistment, right? I've always thought, and I think everybody should think seriously about getting out. Not everybody should get out at every opportunity. Obviously, I'm still going, but I've thought seriously about it. And one of the things I thought before I got to that point is, if I want to get out, can I? I.e., do I have to get a paycheck on the next 15th, the 1st, whatever? And making sure that the answer is always yes, I can get out. No, I don't have to get that paycheck. But then also, like, do I want to keep doing this? Because I think one, in any job you should think that, right? Do I want to keep doing what I'm doing? But especially in a job where the consequences are pretty high, right? Like, if you don't actually want to do the job, you should probably find something that you do want to do, because either you're not going to be focused on it, or you're just kind of there. I don't think we have a lot of people that are there for the prestige of it, because we're so quiet that nobody knows who the frig we are. But
until now,
yeah,
I'm putting us on the map.
But I think the key is, just like you're saying, and like you've been talking about, is having the freedom with what you have, like managing what you do have, and then you can focus on if the thing you want costs more money, figuring out a job or an interest that then provides more of the money, right? But
Absolutely.
yeah, if you don't figure out what you have right now, that other part,
It's everything, man.
Yeah.
It's everything. Like the compass, that is why the compass is, right? It's kind of corny, but I really like it. It's an old mariner's proverb where if, you're sailing, this is hilarious coming from a Navy guy that's never been on a boat. But still, I like it. Oh God.
almost done.
Jesus, what was that? It's an ID in here. If you don't know how to use a compass, you're stuck to the shoreline, right? You have to, like, your hands are tied. You have to stay to the shore. You have to stick to the shore so you know where you're going. Mm-hmm. When you learn how to use a compass, the ocean is yours. You can go anywhere, right? Because you know how to navigate. And that's so huge. And the compass is the budget, right? It's the golden compass that will drive everything. And if you want to go somewhere in life, obviously we don't navigate with compasses anymore. But in fact, we do, because I don't go anywhere. Rarely any place I go. I punch this address into my GPS today, right? So I could get here. Before my phone can give me directions, it has to locate where I am, right? It cannot give me directions to anywhere I want to go if it doesn't know where I am. Right. If it cannot acquire satellites, it cannot effectively calibrate the compass to point me in the right direction, right? So if I don't know where I'm at financially, all my goals that I want to have, I want to buy a house, I want to buy a new car, I want to start a family, and like, you can actually plan to start a family. You don't just have to do that reactionary, for the record.
Impossible.
Just saying, right? We can have a talk about that later if you guys want. But you can plan for these things, right? And you have to know where you're at now in order to know how you're going to get there, right? We can't go hit a target if we don't even know where we're going to land first, right? We just can't. You can't RSP an IED if you don't know where it is. Case in point, me, I had no idea I was standing next to one that was going to fucking kill me for 40 minutes until I was told it was there, right? And then I was like, okay, that was shitty. But thankfully, I relied on my training at that point, and I was actually able to focus and get and do the right thing. Now that I was backpedaling and against an inanimate object, so now it's like great. But that's the situation I want to avoid for a lot of people. I mean, yeah, sure, we're gonna have stumble upon stuff in life. It's gonna happen. You're gonna find out that your girlfriend is pregnant. Sure, that's a big stumble upon thing. But how you react to that, and you can prepare. You can either brush it off, and this is not just talking about your girlfriend getting pregnant or you are now pregnant and whatever. It can be anything, right? You have a crazy financial situation, like you find out you have this medical condition, you find out that your spouse has a medical condition, you find out your kid is going to need a lot of extra medical care. You're in the private sector and you're going to get laid off. And like all these things, like life is going to come at you when you least expect it. But when you are prepared, a lot of these things, while they're very serious, you can actually focus on what you should be focusing on is your family and what needs to be done instead of worrying about where the money is going to come from.
Yeah. And
that's huge. And I see that all the time. And I will always offer, on that note, I will always offer my services 100% for free to any Gold Star family that has lost a loved one and now they have no clue what to do with all of the money and where the money is supposed to come from and where it's supposed to go. I will always provide my services for free for those families, just so they can actually focus on the loss of their loved one, which is what they should be focusing on, not worrying about all the financial aspects that will follow, that they will be faced with. Just like, that's the extreme example to my, less significant radiator problem, right? We can get new radiators. We can't get new people, obviously. But still, like if you have a kind of an insignificant, I want to say, event like my radiator, that turns into an inconvenience, not an emergency. Right. When you have the serious issue, like the death of a loved one, now you can focus on actually losing that person.
Yeah.
And paying attention to all the rest of your family instead of like, how are we going to have a funeral for this person? Where's this money going to come from? Well, they did that. They did this. They did that. I don't even know any of these passwords. You know, it's like have a legacy box, have a way to access everything. You know, like our wives are very similar. My wife, if I died today, I don't know if she would be able to log in all my stuff, right? Just kidding. We have a legacy box where she can log into, and everything is right there laid out.
Yeah.
Right? So she can actually function without me, despite what I, like to believe.
Yeah, right.
She will be able to replace me financially via life insurance. She'll be able to continue on, and money will be the last thing that she worries about.
Yeah.
Right. Which is the best gift, I guess. It's not the only gift, but it's a good gift that you can give to your family. If in the event of your untimely death, and obviously we're kind of taking a left turn here talking about like money and death, but it's an important part of life, right?
It is.
And if we're set up, it's all part of that foundation. Now, my wife, my children will be okay financially. Now they can go figure out everything else they need to figure out without me, and I hate thinking about that, but it needs to be thought about.
Yeah, it's important. Yeah. It's important. Decisions you make now affect you throughout your life, but can affect your family's life after you're gone, and it's important. And it is not the sexy thing to think about, but I mean, most of us at some point or other do think about that, and then it puts you in a position where you are a little more free to go out and do some things that you want to do because people are taken care of, and they know that they're not, obviously nobody wants to lose someone, right? But
right.
It's just a little more freeing when you know what the plan is, and it's actually a good plan.
Yeah. And it's a plan that you can rely on.
Yeah.
Right. It's not going to go anywhere.
Exactly. So I mean, you said it really fast once at least, the name of your company, but you want to throw out like the name of your company and how to reach you if anybody does want the services?
Sure. Yeah, my company is Golden Compass LLC. It's a three-legged stool. We focus on personal finance, communication, and leadership coaching. And it's like a fire triangle, right? Communication, leadership, personal finance. If one of those things is suffering, the other two will be severely impacted, and not in a good way, right? It'll snuff out the fire. So goldencompassllc.com is our website, and Golden Compass Financial Freedom is the financial arm of that company. And that's where I predominantly focus a lot of my attention. My teammate, Ivan Ingram, is the CEO of the company, and he really heads up a lot of the leadership stuff like that. And we do if I do say so myself, we do a great, we attack things as a team, and we do team keynotes, and they're just like, we've had really good feedback on these, and companies, organizations really love it. So if you have an event coming up, or like a company offsite or anything like that you want to talk about any of these things, personal finance, communication, leadership, we can come out, figure out what you guys want, and really give you guys a product and an experience that you will not forget. Because, at the end of the day, we believe, my core belief for the company is that there's a leadership crisis in America, right? There's a leadership crisis in America, and we will never fix it in Washington, period.
Yeah, agreed.
We will only fix it by getting better at leading ourselves, leading our families, leading our communities. And then once we fix that, right, we the people can fix those things ourselves. We don't need anyone from Washington to come in and say, to fix our family for us. Right. It's never going to happen, for one, and you don't want it to happen for two.
Yeah.
So when we do that, we as a society will be able to put forth better candidates to Washington to represent us. So that is obviously a very long, drawn out process, but that is what it is going to take. And that is the vision of the company of Golden Compass, is to fix the leadership crisis in America via those three things. And that's how that's unless someone else has another way, let me know, because that's the only way it's going to happen.
Yeah. No, I agree. It makes sense. And I totally agree that like the most important thing you can do is fix the things that you can. And usually those are within arm's reach. Like you, your family, the community that you're in, your local community, your little bit broader community. And then outside of that, exactly what you said, those people are the ones who then go on and beyond. So if you're taking care of that, you can actually expend energy and see the result of that energy, as opposed to yelling at your congressman and probably not even actually him, just his aide.
Exactly. Wasted time and energy.
Yeah.
You can be focusing that somewhere else.
Exactly. No, I appreciate one, just sharing your story, your EOD side, and then leading it to what you're doing now. I mean, that's awesome. It's cool to see it. One of the awesome things about this community is that there are people like you that take the foundation that you had before, take the EOD skills that you were able to build on that, right? Because I really feel like most of us had a solid foundation, whether it was self-built or, with circumstances or just people in our lives before. But then we come into EOD and we generally are drawn to this because of a lot of the stuff previous, right? And then you build that, and then continuing on to seeing that catalyst or a couple of events that pushed you into, hey, this is what I want to spend my time and focus on, and being able to make that decision to get out because your priorities have changed. I think that's awesome, man.
Thanks, bro.
So appreciate you coming on and sharing, man.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to the Echo Oscar Delta podcast, where we talk to Navy EOD techs and hear the stories that they want to share.